Hey, everybody, welcome back to your favorite media response show. We are X is for Show, and you can check us out on all your socials at X is for Show. We keep it easy. And speaking of easy, hey, I'm Nico, and you guys can check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION.
And speaking of staggeringly difficult, I'm TK, and you can find me at TK Elemental.
And barely speaking, I am your producer, Kevo, and you can find me at Kevo Really. That's KEVOREALLY. And we've got a mostly comic-centric broadcast for you guys today. So I'm going to bump over into my little corner and let these two gentlemen take the wheel.
All right. Well, I guess it's time to play Jesus and take the wheel here. So I want to start with number one. We are here today to talk about kind of the nature of what I think is becoming an increasing problem for Marvel. We're going to be taking a look at the unbelievable pre-launch of everything Gods related. I keep forgetting what GODS stands for. It's like generalized anxiety disorder syndrome or something. But maybe no one ever really dies, together everyone achieves more. I forget, but it's one of those. And Marvel is really pushing the hell out of this. They're like, oh, do you like Sandman? Oh, do you like John Hickman? Just buy it. Just buy it. And that's a little bit where I spent a good amount of time in the last. So, okay, behind the scenes. I go to TK and I say, TK, what do you want to cover this week? And he says, here's 4 ideas. And I go, all 4 of those are great, but here's why we're not doing any of them. Here's the thing I want to do, and I want you to tell me it's a great idea.
Don't forget, you said for 24 hours that we were doing them.
And I read them all. So, I...
Crazy Nico.
So I was like, look. They are doing Marvel Age 1000, and I feel like I haven't really gotten to talk enough about History of the Marvel Universe 1 through 6 by Mark Waid, and by that I mean I've talked about it like 9 times in 500 episodes. But more what I mean is that's part of a generation of books that have been coming out the last couple of years at Marvel that genuinely feel like they're designed to capitalize on unclear... I don't even want to say like classic nostalgia vibes, but almost like capitalize on the fact that for some people, Spider-Man is always going to be who they thought he was when they were 20 years old and stopped reading. And that because none of us are the same age, like reasonably speaking, as like fandom, that means there's always 5 or 6 different Peter Parkers ready to go. So TK, I dragged you kicking and screaming into Marvel Age 1000. Not really, but you're kind of the Gods guy. So talk to me, Gods, Marvel Age 1000, the future and the past of Marvel. What are we doing here?
I don't know that I'm the Gods guy because I don't know that anybody can be. I don't know what we're doing here, man. I'll tell you what. Doing the back reading for this and reading Marvel Comics 1000 felt a lot more like that should have been published today. I don't know. There's just a lot going on with like Al Ewing is clearly doing a lot of his own stuff, and
I was about to say Marvel would still have to like Al Ewing.
Yeah, there's a weird thing going on with Al Ewing, but Marvel Comics 1000 is the same format as all the other 1000. It's an anthology with a bunch of short stories, and a lot of them they're one-page stories, and some of them they're a little bit longer. But in Marvel 1000, a big part of it is this interspersal group of stories that Al Ewing has written about the Eternity Mask.
And it's like 20 of them.
Yeah.
It's like 20 out of 60. It's
right.
A lot.
And so it keeps coming up, and he keeps, like, nobody, including Jonathan Hickman with Gods, nobody has ever more clearly and transparently and earnestly been like, hey, look over here. This is going to be extremely important. And then we never heard anything about it again, really. We got a little bit in Defenders Beyond.
And I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad you came with that piece of brain matter ready to go, because that's actually what my notes say. We actually only saw Masked Rider and Eternity Mask 8 more times. 8 more times total. That's Marvel Age One. That's Marvel 1000, Marvel 1001. It's Incoming. It's one issue of Iron Man, and then it's the 6 issues of Defenders, and that's it. This thing that they said was going to be like this big arc running through all of these special $13 comics that you look. If I had to explain one more time, we thought bigger was better always because TVs had to be bigger to be better. But like some of these books, they're 80 pages and they cost like $13.99, and like you have to pre-order them. You have to know what cover you want in advance.
And I will say, I thought at the time that Marvel Comics was cool. I thought this story that Al Ewing was doing was cool. I loved Defenders. And at the time, with him doing Sword / X-Men Red, there was this real feeling. It felt like, especially in the time period as Judgment Day was coming to a wrap, it felt like maybe Gillen was not going to be the guy. And maybe it was just Ewing's turn. And also that he had seeded so much stuff in so many stories that, especially if maybe time-wise and just in terms of rotation and big names and people who were getting books, if you looked at that evidence and thought, it might be Ewing, and then you saw what he was working on, you would have thought maybe Ewing was about to launch an enormous, cosmology revamp of Marvel. That was what my money was on, and I think if you go back, I've said it a few times on the show. I know I've talked about it with both my partners, but it really could not have seemed more obvious that that's the direction things were going in. And we knew Hickman was working on something. A lot of us were like, I don't know, is it like Moon Knight? We had a lot of ideas, but then we got the announcement about Gods. And now it seems like Ewing's work is scaled back. And Talia Agron saying, I would read the hell out of a Ewing lead relaunch. Yeah, I think we all really would love to and really thought it was going that way. But we're at this point now where it just feels like we were right at the edge. And then we just got whipped around and put in a whole new direction. It's not that it's a good or a bad thing. It's just, I had all the evidence ready for this, Ewing cosmology, and I'm getting kind of a rush job on this lead up to Gods. Again, not a bad thing, but it's coming kind of fast. And then, when I look at that Marvel Age versus this Marvel, or the Marvel Comics versus this Marvel Age, that was a whole bunch of related and unrelated stories. It really felt like there was a vibe and a
picture, at least.
Yeah. And this is an anthology of some really cute and sweet stories.
I agree with you so much that there's like a loss of that direction that we had kind of running for us there for a little while. Just to kind of give a quick over-under, we're going to be taking a look at all of the things that have led up to Gods, to get going on that title. Very excited about Marvel's Gods. Just excited to see what it does, if nothing else. We're also going to be taking a look at kind of like the history of the Marvel 1000 line. So we're going to be taking a look at some books that would never need to be looked at ever again. That is Deadpool 1000, Wolverine 1000, and the Spectacular Spider-Man 1000. And by taking a look at them, I mean oh, look, there they are. Then we're going to be talking in depth about Marvel Age 1000, and as has already come up, we're going to talk a bit about Marvel Comics 1000, and just tap a toe on Marvel Comics 1001. What a frustration that was for me when it came out at the time. I was like, oh my God, Marvel Comics 1000 changed my life. Let's talk about Marvel. What the hell is this? This is 32 pages. Okay. So I want to start with, I think my general problem with Gods is that I don't think Marvel really is about looking forward and cohesifying their whole thing. I don't think that's what they're here to do. I think, Kevo just started me on Solar Opposites, which is a really fun show. It's a really great show about perhaps moral humor, I guess, is the best way to put it. There's, for everything they think, we're getting over on somebody, we are getting away with this. There's always some way that they are very quickly humbled And I love that. And, it comes in all sorts of things. Like there's an episode where everybody's kind of come up with a device to make their lives better and it goes horribly wrong. And by there's an episode, I mean, that's every episode. And that's sort of what I feel is happening with Gods and Marvel Age 1000. And I just want to be clear. Marvel Age 1000 is not the start of something by any means. We're also, I keep forgetting, we're also going to be taking a look for a second at Amazing Fantasy 1000. I just forget that one happened. But Marvel's done a 1000 each summer now for a couple of years. And my reaction, my overall is they just want to keep pointing to how cool they were in 1973 and how weird it was back that time that Howard the Duck almost started the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And they just want to keep pointing to these cute, cool moments. But the thing that they're not doing is they're not kind of owning those moments, right? And this is something that we talk about a lot. But, when I think about the way people tend to end, I'm moving away from the microphone. When I think about the way people tend to end a run of X-Men, it's always like a bunch of X-Men are now fucking and some other X-Men are either dead or in a bullet in space, whatever. And Magneto probably suffered from some horrible, horrible Holocaust analogy, right? That's the way you end an X-Men run. But the way you end a Daredevil run is you usually cripple everything in sight and just hope that the next writer really doesn't want anything good to happen. And I think that's kind of what's happening to the Marvel Universe. I've long said that one of the things to look back on is what Entertainment Weekly used to dub the Buffy Friends under-over, which was, if it was really inappropriate, you could talk about it on Buffy because Buffy was in the bottom 20 most watched shows on television because it was on the WB and it was not appealing to people with Nielsen boxes, even if people were watching it. However, Friends was like the number 3 most watched show in the world. So Friends would just do whatever and there was nobody arguing with it because it was Friends. So with that sort of over under on an idea, I kind of think that Chris Claremont's Uncanny X-Men and Frank Miller's Daredevil kind of represent that over under. Daredevil kind of does it in the background while X-Men does it big and flashy. But like the boutique run that, Daredevil is famous for, everything does that now. Everything's most famous run is a super big boutique. Yeah, Daredevil does it in the background, right? Everybody's run is this super boutique thing that's like, oh, so interesting. And now I think what I'm finding is what the Marvel Universe loves to do is it loves to put a Masked Raider right there. You know what you brought up twice? You brought up Masked Raider twice, but can I make an interesting point? We read that's Tillier, I just want to say, as a good Cuban Irish boy who, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to get the comments up. So just as a good, Cuban Catholic Irish boy by birth, not by current status. I definitely know what you're saying. But the point I was driving at was that the thing that I find that's happening a lot is Masked Raider, great example, but Korvac was on every page Masked Raider was on. Yep. There was a reference to Korvac is back online. Yep. Now I've looked it up and I did the numbers just like I did for Korvac appears in I think all but 4 issues of 19 of the Christopher Cantwell Iron Man series. That Iron Man series that is a footnote in the recent run of Iron Man books, sandwiched between the run by Dan Slott that was a crossover mega event and Jerry Duggan's let's all just pretend that everything's an X-Man book. So, yeah, that's their thing right now. Their thing is how many big things can we shove into the season finale that we don't actually want to pay off in the premiere.
It does really feel that way. And I think one of my big problems is I know it didn't always used to be like this. So I keep getting tricked and I keep being like, well, no, it's there. They're not going to do nothing with it. That would be weird. And it kind of goes to another thing we've been talking about, which is we're hyping books coming out in February. Just throw them wherever you can, Nico. We're we're hyping books coming out in February, in August, and there's just so much noise and information happening.
Yes, I make a lot of noise.
On and off screen, on and off page, on and off stage, just wherever we are. It's very noisy.
It's all the rage.
That it's, in a way, like they can do it because we will forget because they'll just pile stuff over it such that it won't matter in a lot of ways. But I don't know, like it does matter, and it's disappointing. And if we're looking at all these reasons why the only things that sell are number ones, and then, you know, we do the next 3 to 5 issues because we have to, end the miniseries and then do the next thing, maybe a big reason for that is because a lot of stuff really has no direction, isn't unified, and isn't going anywhere, and isn't going to pay off. Because if you have big, bold ideas, 6 issues isn't enough to pay them off. A bunch of one-page stories isn't enough to pay them off. But if you're never going to get the page time to pay them off later, what am I getting invested in?
So I want to ask you a question. I'm going to make up a bad story, and it's a bad story, and it shouldn't happen, right?
Sure.
But, so they announced the next run of Daredevil, and we find out that, oh my God, I want this run so bad now. It turns out that there was a period of time where Elektra went to business school, and she had a Foggy-esque friendship, but she was the Foggy. She was the one who was reserved because this girl had none of Elektra's access. So she was just a wild girl who would maybe fall off a pier and people would bring her up in the series finale. You know,
Abby Jacobs, no.
Oh, Abby Jacobs. So
Abby Brown? Doesn't matter. She's dead.
Splash. So I would love it if they like brought her in and then all of a sudden she's possessed by the beast of the hand, or the fist of the beast, or the fisting monster, or whatever. And she kills Matt. Would you rather Matt just come back really quickly in the next run and them kind of womp around it? Or do you want this 2-year plan of a bad story killing off Matt? But let me be clear with you. Eleanor Rigby, that's her name. Eleanor Rigby, future business leader of America, Elektra's childhood friend, my new favorite character.
This is a fair question. I think maybe I want the 2 years.
Okay, you know what? And I think that's the thing, because I'm like, yeah, I would take the 2 years. But then I'm like, no, you know what? I recently remembered that I almost wanted to flip the table during, what do you call it? Oh, yes, Elektra Eleanor. But I wanted to flip the table during the first Hellfire Gala. It drove me absolutely batty. So the thing that I really want to drive at with all of this, that like is my big focus here, is that I feel very much like Gods is an attempt to do something that Marvel is already indicating to us through these codified attempts at adding to their history, that Gods is already going to be just the next thing that we're not talking about in 6 months. And I'm going to get to the stuff in 1000 in a little bit, but I kind of want to open with Gods because there's stuff in 1000 that's going to like enhance our Gods points. But to start, Gods has been hinted in the weirdest way. Hinted is the wrong term, but Gods has been kind of pre-released in the weirdest ways. One big thing that Gods did was there's a series of issues that each got a Gods variant plus 1 page. And oh God, as a guy who writes indie comics, check them out, kidriotcomics.com. This incredible crew of people makes it with me. Super good stuff. Real proud of it. Glad to be part of the Young Men in Love anthology. I love making comics, right? And so when I say a 1-page story is tough, a 1-page story is tough. Like, I mean, you have to find a way to hit every beat in 1 page. And so sometimes when I'm looking at books that have to do these 1-page stories, like Marvel Comics 1000, I am hard pressed to give these writers a hard time. So when it came time to read these one-page stories in Gods, and sometimes I could not figure out what was the one page. The Fantastic Four page, I literally had to Google online to find out what page it was. And somebody actually, like on the Reddit thread I was on, was like, all of you who needed help figuring this out, you idiots. It literally says Gods on the page. It says Gods on each one of the Gods pages. But I believe Kevo has prepared some beautiful slides for us for these covers and pages. So I'd love to just point to those real quick. We had first up, to get us started on the Gods project, a Hellfire Gala variant plus a page of Hellfire Gala. That's Ileana. Now, this is interesting because while a lot of the covers depict a character meeting a member of Gods, most of the issues don't. In fact, Gods characters don't even appear in some of these one-pagers. So, I don't know, right? You know, my biggest problem here, just right off the bat, just to be honest, is this just looks like Stephen Strange hanging out with the Frost siblings. This doesn't look like Dimitri, Wynn, and Girl One. I don't remember her name. This doesn't look like those three new characters. And that's partially on the fact that Valerio Schiti has some of the most recognizable, unbelievable, beautiful designs in all of Marvel canon ever. And you just can't escape that everything he draws is so beautiful.
Yeah, but
Aiko, thank you, Talir. You are a king among Talirs.
I was gonna say I thought it started with an M, but you very well could be right. It's funny because like you can kind of point to a bunch of different characters whom these two especially look like, and then maybe even these three. When the last time Schiti posted a like character design of Wynn, I was just like, you can't tell me this isn't a Nathan Summers. And not that that's a bad thing, but also, are we getting a little bit tropey? I don't know. He does, Dimitri does really look like Christian Frost. Aiko with the white hair, even though she is maybe Asian, maybe Japanese, that's its own kind of set of problems. But whatever. This is character design is like songwriting. We've heard every combination of chords you're ever gonna hear.
Oh yes.
People genuinely fully copy songs without ever having heard them, just because two people had the same idea for how you might all pop punk songs are the same four chords. So not the end of the world that people look vaguely similar. For me, it's that like this is the biggest thing because it's the biggest writer talking about the biggest concepts. And I think somebody didn't push hard enough in editorial when it was like, I'm going to do that. They play it so cool that's how they're really badass, because they're dealing with gods, but they're sitting at this party really casual and one of them can't get off his phone. I get why that seems like as an elevator pitch, that's really cool. Like that guy that like wields all of the universe destroying power and just don't give a fuck. I get why that seems really cool in a pitch. Unfortunately, in a story, it doesn't work. And in a one page, like you said, you don't really have enough time for somebody not to care.
But that's exactly it. Like you're saying it, and like it's so cool. I think back a lot to how when you first start writing, you always want to write like, oh man, I would have Batman and the Joker face off, and after Batman beats the Joker to death, he just starts laughing. Like when you're 14, you have that thought, and it's terrible, and sometimes you make an entire film franchise about it, and that's what happens. But for the most part, one of the things that struck me the most in this is how everybody's trying to act like they've got such BDE that they just don't care, to the point where it becomes a fallacy. it becomes a diminishing returns. But that's actually part of what I really loved about the next page. The Doctor Strange page was one of my favorites for a trillion reasons. Number one, putting them on the same exact page was a huge mistake because they literally just look like time displaced versions of one another. One of them just looks like the hot cosplay version, and the other just kind of looks like regular Doctor Strange. And
okay.
yeah, that's where it's a little tricky, but I just want to give it up to the creative team on this. Now, number one, I found myself deeply distracted by the fact that there was a Hellfire Gala with a page by John Hickman and Valerio Schiti that was not a Hellfire Gala page. That's the guy who's responsible for the Krakoan Age. That's the guy who's responsible for the Hellfire Gala. And he's in an issue of Hellfire Gala that we thought was so despicable that we basically said, yeah, we're never covering X-Men regularly again because of that issue. And like, we're going to go back on that any minute, but like, it was just, there were times where reading this, knowing that John Hickman has had so much effect on, there is no issue other than that Hellfire Gala, which was the wrong direction for me, that John Hickman had ever contributed to that title or that character, that his contribution wasn't way greater than the run that this one page was in, because his Doctor Strange is the one who handled the incursions. His Doctor Strange is that new Avengers Doctor Strange. So reading this page, I was like, this is, the god is Jonathan Hickman, that's who is the god of this. And reading him having these characters interact, I don't want to be glib, but I liked this blocking and this banter style a little bit more when it involves Scott Summers in a Speedo. But this blocking, this banter, this coming in the middle of this story with a big view in front, it reads like a page from the Jonathan Hickman handbook, which if you can only do single pages, cool. And the fact that I'm going to expect Valerio Schiti to be on nearly every page of Gods. I think they'll delay the book a la Justin Weaver tanking S.H.I.E.L.D. with all his might before I think they will release it with a lot of fill-ins. Like, I am here for it, but this is not one that you're going to be able to switch in Josh Cassara on and we're not going to notice. So that they had Juan Gideon and KJ Diaz do the art on this page when they're the native artist on the title, that really made this feel special. It gave the gods something real to think about, other artists drawing them.
I definitely see it as an interesting strategy and as a way to pull them in a little more, to really give us a lot of early artistic perspective. I think for all of the misses I'm seeing here and there in terms of character work, that is a really big hit. All of these single pages as art are really fantastic and allowing them to feel a little more lived in. The problem is, writing wise, I'm not getting anything from this. And so, it just feels like, I'm trying to think of it. It's a 30 Rock joke about how NBC is now producing 10-second sitcoms, and it's the guy going, honey, I'm home, and the wife goes, oh, brother, and then it just rolls the credits.
Okay, I actually fell for that a couple of years ago. Hulu was doing a pretty clever
April Fool's prank,
and they were like, a new way to enjoy your television. Who? Your favorite shows broken down into 7-second sound bites. And it's just like, seriously, it's like Empire, and it's the Empire title card, and then it's just Cookie going, hell, and then it's the end of the clip, and we were like, yes, this is how people are going to be watching TV forever.
Sometimes it was just like, huh? That's it.
It was basically a previously on Mad Men. So,
right, and it feels like this a little bit, because one page is just so little, and the Hellfire Gala one, at least
we serve the old ones.
I mean, it's hammy, but then also like comparatively, it's just weird enough that like there's something going on there. Like you've got Ilyana in the mix, so we care a little bit. There's something very phallic happening with her spear and him touching the tip of it, and
ooh, and that line where Dimitri's like, "Ugh, I don't touch magic." You know, that made me think about this automatically trying to set up that these characters have things. You know, something we've talked about is we thought that like Wilson Fisk should have like, you know, the financier supreme. Like he should be the capitalist supreme or something. Like he has magic over stocks. And the fact that they had a character that we keep being told this is magic, you know, Kevo's doing magic hands up there. That we keep being told that this is like a book defining magic. Hearing somebody be like, magic, never heard of it. It was just, you know, in one page you can do a lot. And then there's the Fantastic Four number 10 page. And I really Fantastic Four is a rough sell for me.
Before we go to that one though, hold on. Just with this Doctor Strange one, I just want to say like the really big trouble I had with this one is I feel like in terms of the rules, if you're going to say these characters are hugely important and have been working in the background and we just haven't met them yet, doing the whole, we haven't met them on screen yet, but actually Doctor Strange knows them perfectly well. And like, it's not a big deal for him to just see them around. That to me, it's not a rule break, but it is a specific use of the rules in a way that I don't think works here. I'm
so glad you brought this up. It's in almost all of my notes.
Yeah.
Oh, please, yeah.
No. I mean, like, there's not much more to say about it. You can go this route. Like, it can be that it's a weird thing. Like, the big way to do it is the Sentry. The big way to do it is this person has always been here. And yes, we're retconning it, but like, it is such a huge retcon that we're actually employing really hard stylized work to show you what the Sentry would have looked like had he been a part of the Silver Age. And we created a costume that looks like it could have been part of the Silver Age, and we're showing you flashbacks drawn in that style. And it's a huge problem that people have lost these memories, and this guy like literally can destroy the planet. So there's so much there, and it took a lot of work and effort. And again, this is kind of this idea that they don't do this stuff anymore. Now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, these guys have always been around. Doctor Strange knows them. But trust me, they're hugely important.
Well, but that's where I actually want to a little bit dissent, because I think the Sentry way of doing it is the cheater way of doing it. Like, oh no, he's here, you just don't remember. It's on you. Is like the worst way to introduce me to something.
No, but they were specifically like, we erased all of your memories. Like that was
the in-universe, everybody had their memories erased. The original bit was you comic historians haven't done your homework enough to know this character exists. And it was a 6-month marketing scheme through
that was
magazine.
like that was a little shitty. I get that. But also it's a little tongue-in-cheek.
It is, but it also at the time was they thought they were breaking ground with meta storytelling. Like Paul Jenkins has written about it extensively. And like the thing I think here is the reason this works is because it's the same reason that Spider-Man was always always magical works. It's the reason that it is impossible that in Grant Morrison's New X-Men, there are 32 million mutants when the issue before is, or just several issues before, it's a full year of storytelling, is the mutant genome being turned off. It's impossible that there are now 32 million mutants around the world when Mutant No More in X-Men 99 just happened. But it's all of a sudden, well, there are 32 million mutants, and that we recognize there are 32 million mutants is why they're able to be hurt. Peter Parker's always been magical. Spider-Man's always had magic powers, but everybody's ignored it, which is why no one, even the magical beings, have ever interacted with him as though he's magic. They specifically go out of their way in the final issue, the final one-pager, to say that these characters have been out of our plane of existence and have only just returned to our plane of existence. So it's sort of like the avatar of the powers that be some people know him, but he's so far removed from the possibility of interacting with 616 that why bring him up? Why incur the chaos of summoning him by name? Oh, summon you by name.
Which I can get into for sure. Sorry, I'm coughing a lot this episode, so I'm trying not to expose everybody to my digital germs. I can definitely get into that idea. I get, again, maybe it's the one-page thing that's the problem.
Agreed.
Because now the question is, I need like a little bit more to go on here. I also, now that you've said it for the first time, Jonathan, powers that be, bro.
Yeah, that's pretty on the nose.
It is a little bit like, hey, have you guys checked out that cool show? It's this, people haven't heard of it. It's this show about witches called Charmed. But I also want to say something that is worth mentioning is the color story on these 2 pages is gripping.
Yeah.
Is so gripping that when you collect this, I might have or might not have made my own personal file to share, to read, right? Looking at this spread of 4 pages was so beautiful. And then I got to Fantastic Four. Like, when they said that Ryan North was getting Fantastic Four, I was like, safe choice, but that guy's going to do a knockout run. No! He has done an unsafe run that has left me very frustrated. And Fantastic Four is a hard sell for me, but I keep quitting this run. And then I pick up the next one, and then I quit it again. And somehow this was by far the most frustrating of the Gods pages. And you can see the one next to it is actually more frustrating. But this one drove me nuts. And I think it's because when I think about Fantastic Four runs that define cool, that define amazing, that define storytelling, the Fantastic Four run that does that is the John Hickman run. And he invented Secret Wars in his Fantastic Four run, and his command of Doom, his understanding of Spider-Man by making Spider-Man. Yeah, and you know what? I see Talir jumping in. I'm already concerned about Gods because the marketing is not making me excited. I'm really starting to find that my comic book reading experience is being like, okay, it's the opposite of TikTok. When I go on my secret TikTok accounts, I know that it's going to manipulate me into being happy for a couple of minutes. Marvel, you're not customizing it. You're doing it to the entirety of the internet. That's not TikTokable, right? And, you know, if you're going to wake up in the morning and brush your teeth with a bottle of Jack, Marvel, you got to be thinking about what is aggressive. Giving me a lot of banal is not aggressive. This page is by some unbelievably talented people. I mean, when you're talking about John Hickman and Leandro Fernandez and Jesus Albertov, one of the best-known colorists in the entire industry, and Joe Caramagna, one of the best-known letterers in the entire industry, this page should have fucked. But instead, this page kind of left me confused. I don't understand how this fits into the 10 pages of Gods. And this was the first cover where I said, absolutely not. No. This cover bugs me. I love Doom, but I think Doom's face looks kind of weird. This is one of those times where I think we need to remind people that masks don't emotionally react like faces do. And the other thing, I'm a really big fan of the Locust Vial over in the pages of Hellions. I love a good Cronenbergian dysmorphic body horror monster. Thank God Cronenberg is surfing on the Discovery. But I find myself displeased by this cover. Okay, first of all, beige is a hard sell. And when I want to talk about leaning toward yellow with your color story summons a lot of really complex feelings. When you think about kind of color lean and you think about kind of color style, when you think about like Sonia Obach, you think like heavy use of dark tone. When you think about somebody like Laura Martin, you think about explosive color that highlights with shine. Yellow is a really tough sell in the first place. It's not a sharp orange, and yet it's not the dark driving power of a rich brown. This cover, to start, made me unhappy, and then I felt deeply misled by this page, which, I don't know, this could have been out of any book ever.
Yeah. And you know, I have nothing to say about it really. Like, I have everything to say about it because I have nothing to say about it.
Oh, but hold on. Pause for one moment. We have a comic book fan whose voice I respect, appreciate, and admire to no end.
Hi, Steve.
The amazing Steve is really appreciating the color talk. That's one thing that I think is so important. Not enough fans take into consideration things like the number of letterers that will work on something, the number of colorists that will work on something. When you think about color story and you think about color journey, it actually informs more than you think. I love to bring up the NFL, I want to say like argument, right? A couple of years ago, the NFL realized that all home team locker rooms were painted red and all away team locker rooms were painted baby blue. They would then check the testosterone and like aggression levels of the different teams. The team that was in the locker room painted an aggressive shade of red was psyched up, but the team that was in the baby blue room was calmed. Not because color tells us who we are, but because color has a synaptic response the same way flavor does, the same way smell does.
Yeah.
And this yellow set me in a bad place. And just, knowing that that's something that goes into talking about comics, it's such a necessary part of remembering that this is every instrument in the orchestra you're hearing.
I think though that the first three panels can work even for what you're saying, because we've got some AIM guys. Like, we've got a classic AIM color, we've got AIM drones. It's unfortunate because with this little time, you want to really ham up the fact that these are just no names and just, have them say like the silliest, most like you're disposable, you're probably going to die dialogue. The whole point here is just to Steve saying, if I've been, sorry, pull that one back up for a sec, Kevo. If I've been working through it, if it's purple, someone's going to die. All of this is great to hear on the pod. Thank you very much.
Hey, my husband's a professional comic book colorist. So like my job is just to tell him that he's handsome and brilliant and listen to him explain to me why things are pretty.
Loving the color art talk.
I think this could have worked with these three panels. It's just then we get this reveal, and the reveal is literally nothing in a way that doesn't tell me anything about gods and doesn't do anything to pull in how the gods are going to be interesting to AIM and like why it's funny that they'll interact with AIM. There's just, unfortunately, there ends up being nothing here. But I do think in terms of like, particularly the color story, we do start off with something really cool in just having AIM yellow suits here.
And that's actually what I loved about the nature of this fluidity, because when we get to Moon Knight 26, my emotional response to this cover is extraordinary. Number one, I just need to say that Jed MacKay, Federico Sabatini, and Rochelle Rosenberg, along with Travis Lanham, while this book is not always my favorite writing, it is the prettiest comic. And even when you're talking about like, oh, the writing doesn't do it for me, it's the art. The art is from a script, and that's still a collaborative process. And to say that the artist does it on their own strips away the artist's ability to be praised for their teammanship, So I just want to say that, like, I super read a bunch of issues of Moon Knight to try and make this make sense. I don't know what I fucking read. I don't know what this page is trying to communicate. But you know what it is? It's pretty. And you know what? I don't watch Mario Lopez on Access Hollywood because he has hard-hitting journalism that reminds me of some of the most taught editorials about Vietnam. I watch Mario Lopez because he was the first man I saw do a peck bounce. And that is still a beautiful thing that affects me cerebrally. And Moon Knight, even when I look at a page like this, where I'm like, I don't know what this is trying to express to me about gods. The team came together to build something so beautiful. It also is kind of like a testament to the tightness of a team. When a team can work with when it's like essentially the same creative team, but a fill-in penciler, we all feel a strong positivity. Oh, wow, that guest penciler. It didn't feel different at all. This is a guest writer. This is a guest, this is like watching an episode of Next Gen and being like, oh my goodness, for no apparent reason, they have Sigourney Weaver playing the captain. It's amazing.
Okay. Yeah.
I see it. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this either. I mean, like, okay, there's a beep in wall panel.
It doesn't
Guess
give
we'll
you much.
find out what that means.
Well, speaking of, guess we'll find out what that means. I just want to say for a second, Scarlet Witch, this book has been a mind twist, a mind bend. I don't like the book's direction, but I like every issue of the book for what it does. And that's something that I think is really new to me as a fan. I feel like I'm trying to see the value in storytelling, even when I don't necessarily initially understand it. You know what? We keep talking about how comics just keep throwing away canon whenever they feel like it. I genuinely don't know how much I think all of this Contest of Chaos stuff matters. I know that they have said that Taguchi is the first S-class hero in the Marvel Universe. And if you've ever looked at Taguchi, you were clearly aware of that in the first place. That is the most beautiful man in the Marvel Universe. But
Taguchi.
Oh, Taguchi, thank you so much. My pronunciation of English words is occasionally questionable at best, so my attentiveness to foreign names, certainly, or international names, need to be given a lot more attention. But yeah, Scarlet Witch, what a beautiful book, even when I don't get it. But I do think Christian Frost would just be, like fag-hagging around with Wanda, if for no other reason, just to piss Emma the fuck right off.
Yeah.
So when I opened this, I was like, okay, I guess Christian Frost is hanging out with Matt Lucas. Sure. And then I came to realize this is more of that Marvel Vampires thing. And we called this wrong a year ago. We were like, Marvel's so done with Vamp. No, they're not.
Well, I believe I specifically said that I felt like there was more for the Sebelithi vampires, especially. And I thought that was a cool concept, and I'm pretty excited to see them here.
They look like Raphael Albuquerque vampires from American Vamp.
I definitely see that. They look like really fancy Turok Han from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Ooh, yeah, like hot Spock versions.
Can we just say that, like, while clearly there's a lot of things that we need to outright demand Joss Whedon apologize for, the influence of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, of Angel, and of Firefly has been really beautiful to see on some of these books, especially when we see non-problematic creators say, hey, I loved that idea. I'm just not going to do it like a fuckhead. Yeah, Kevo, thank you so much for focusing on that. That's actually the best part about Scarlet Witch. Anybody who's reading it, it's like the most woman-positive book in the Marvel Universe for my money right now.
Love that.
I just wish it was written by a woman. That's nothing against the incredible queer work of Steve Orlando. But, one of my points in a lot of my writing in the last couple of weeks, as we've examined House of M for the upcoming JMS releases, has been, Wanda is a victim of men. Men. So, while I am very excited to see Steve Orlando and Sarah Pichelli, along with Frank William and VC's Corey Pettit, work on this beautiful page. I just maybe wish that this had been written by somebody like a Teenie Howard or Ann Nesenti, Weezy Simonson. These are still incredible women who are still working in the industry, and give them goddamn work already.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this was one, I will say at least, that gave us a little more of something to go with. We get a whole interaction that doesn't have me being like, okay, but are these the most important people in the Marvel Universe, or did they just show up? What's happening? This is purely transactional between two teams of like kind of side characters that I both think are cool. I don't need talking to a computer. Whatever it is, it just works.
And what's really funny, I'm not even kidding, is my next note is the Guardians of the Galaxy cover number 5 is the first thing that does not work for me outright in this whole thing.
Yeah.
I think this cover, and I have the ability to perhaps draw a conclusion, right? That's at best. I feel really bad saying it this way, but I truly believe this is an unattractive cover. It's just kind of ugly. I don't understand why Mantis, Rocket, and Groot all vaguely have the same face. There's something soulless in the portrayal of Nebula and Gamora, and the fact that Nebula, Gamora, and Drax have a physicality that's in common. I understand that this character in the center is another character that's from Gods, but it actually just looks like Kitty Pryde using Jubilee's powers, and I'm really not sure what's happening. This was the first moment where I said, I'm going to take a step back and consider if I'm having a reaction to this cover, if this just isn't my style. No, I love manga and I love comics inspired by manga. This just is not for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair way to put it. It's not that anybody is saying like, "Oh, you trash artist."
No, this guy can outdraw me
right, exactly. But yeah, just doesn't quite work. I also this is where I get into the thing of like I'm still not sold on these characters just by their mere existence. Like I really appreciate what Hickman is trying to do here, but you're like, just girl in a skirt with magic powers. I'm sure there's more here, but like guy with a gun harness and a trench coat and white hair streaks like every important man in Marvel has. These root descriptions, just no matter how hard these artists are working on them, sometimes when I just look at the snapshot, I'm cold.
It kind of makes me think about a thing that I occasionally get both called out on and call people out on. Sometimes I will seriously just look at somebody and be like, dude, come on. I get you're a straight guy, but do you really need to be hypnotized by that woman's breasts as she walks by? Can't you be an adult man? And can't you say that's attractive, but I'm not going to base my buying and like all of my decisions based on how attractive that is? And every one of my partners has to be like, Nico, put your eyes back in your face. We've all seen butts. Because when a butt walks by, I turn into the wolf eye gif. And so that's kind of the same reaction we have to some of these some of these visualizations, some of these visualized characters. We look at it and we go, boobs. And like, we just can't stop being drawn to it. But if you put it in the terms of boobs, then you're kind of like, yeah, I would judge that guy. So it's really interesting the ways in which we have these sorts of reactions to a visuality. I think the interiors for this issue are really attractive. Kev Walker and Matt Hollingsworth do a really beautiful job on this page. But this was another page where I felt like I got very little that told me anything about gods, and was more at this point sort of losing my focus in this read.
Yeah. And it's funny you say losing your focus, but like you put this together, like this is otherwise you're grabbing multiple books, stacking them together and finding these one pages. Like you're to compile this experience is itself a loss of focus experience. So we have two things. One, are these even working taken as a whole, which is a borderline difficult experience to make happen? But then on top of that, am I gonna care when the book comes out? Like, so it's October 4th. We've talked about this a lot.
I was like, no, it's not what?
It's coming out October 4th. So we talked about this for a while. It's possible that because of that, I'm going to remember. But like when this clock appears in the page, I was assuming it's in issue 1 and it doesn't come randomly in issue 8. When this clock comes up and the significance of this little moppet being like, do you know where this is from, finally appears, am I going to be like, I am shook that back in August, I spent all that time reading these preview pages and compiling these preview pages because now I know what the clock is. Or
I ingested a lot of substances in high school. Sorry about it. I had friends. Do you know how shot my recall is?
No.
I can't remember either. That's the problem.
yeah, I mean, it's none of us got attention spans, no mo. Very few of us have memories. But like, assuming even that you have both, does this matter? Does this matter? I don't know. It's gonna have to be a really cool fucking clock.
Never
for me
care
to
what
have...
they say. Never care what they do. Nothing really matters.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Am I the only occasional Metallica fan in the room?
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Oh.
My big one is Whiskey in the Jar, though.
Yeah, I'm a basic boy, and that cover of Turn the Page with S&M, I quake inside. Right. Speaking of, I quake inside. They announced another volume of Uncanny Avengers, and I could literally feel myself become impotent. But I did not hate that first issue. I was like, when you go into something and you're like, I'm gonna give this a D. When it comes out, I'm just gonna give it a D.
Yeah.
I'm gonna flip through it, and I'm just gonna give it a D. And then I read it, and it was a B- at worst. Maybe a B+ at best. But this issue of Uncanny Avengers, the most offensive thing is the terrible cover.
Is this particular Greg Land cover, which thankfully was not the main one. Marvel, stop working with Greg Land.
Stop. Not because he's so offensive. I'm ready to call stuff offensive. He hasn't been offensive in a really long time. Now it's just a matter of same in taste.
Yeah.
Like,
also,
he
never copped to the offensive stuff, and it was bad for a while.
It was. It really, truly was. No question.
He did stop, and if I take away the factor of tracing or not, this is his art style. I actually don't think he traces that much anymore. I think this is just how he does it. He's got such a catalog
muscle memory
now. Well, and it's building off of previously done things, which everybody does. So it's not anyway. Just stop working with Greg Land. I'm so sick of this. This was another. Okay, so the House of Ranks and Numbers, home of the Centum. Don't know what any of those things mean. That's fine. I know you want me to be
that's one of the templates on my spreadsheets.
That feels right. I know you want me to be I cannot wait to discover somewhere in the bowels of issue 4 what the House of Ranks and Numbers are. But guys, it's just a lot. And okay, there's a multiversal Eternal that
was smuggling,
shoved a Tesseract up his butt to get through customs.
Okay, that's super hot. And I also just want to comment on this former contributor Arturo looking motherfucker. Kevin, could you scroll up a little bit?
This guy?
A little, yeah. I'm gonna get him pregnant. This guy's beautiful, and he's my kind of guy. Super handsome. Love it. The thing that I think is really interesting is when you summon the Tesseract into the conversation, you're saying this is a very specific thing I want people to be able to interact with.
Yeah.
I think Gods is prohibitive.
Yeah.
I think the nature of Gods is preclusive. But the Tesseract is chicken tenders at a bar. The Tesseract is wanting a good parking spot in the rain. That's something a lot of us can recognize as something we've experienced through pop culture. And I wonder the nature of working to include inclusive elements in a preclusive story, and why a guy like John Hickman, who much like Cloak and Dagger, has never been concerned with popularity, is so eager to do so.
Yeah, I can't answer that. It's kind of has the opposite effect of the Loki pile of Infinity Stones.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Where like that's a moment where it's just like I loved that moment because it was a particular artist and showrunner reminding everybody that as Marvel moves on from the last biggest Marvel movie, all of the elements of the last biggest Marvel movie will cease to be super important if anybody so chooses. All of the drama in every story can stop being important the moment you move on from it. And so when you just see a pile of Infinity Stones, all that means is we've gone to a place where it doesn't matter anymore. And that's okay. That's unless you are doing something that Marvel has clearly shown they're never going to do, which is keep a tight hold on this stuff and codify rules and say, if the Infinity Stones ever show up, we're in really dangerous territory. Since they never will do that, having a moment where it's like, yeah, like here they're ornaments that we throw in a bucket. I love that. That's a great thing. In this moment, in this story, it's the opposite, where they kind of want you to be like, and it's really important because they're collecting them. But to me, it's more like, nope, now you've just told me that cosmic cubes mean nothing. But you haven't given me House of Ranks and Numbers isn't enough to care about to replace my interest in what it means when a cosmic cube has shown up. That's just a name.
And, in regard to that, something that I think is really significant is, and I'm just making a quick joke here.
Yeah.
The two of us are different kind of iterations of someone like a Nathan Summers, somebody whose life is lived in a non-linear way. Whereas I feel like somebody like Kevo, not that this is a reference you get quite as much, but Kevo kind of is a little bit more in that like Shatterstar kind of who I am is a mystery, but I have my own unique set of special circumstances that make me a unique agent in any situation. Everybody's got their version of I move through time, I move through space, and my linearity is defined by the course of what fandom's reaction is, right? And I think when we're talking about something like the Cosmic Cube, the reaction throughout time is very different based on the idea of what fandom is in comics, right? When we talk about the Beyonder has just been nerfed to death, man. And then you've got Al Ewing, who's like, no, beyond it back up. But isn't the Beyonder just a cosmic cube technically?
Yes.
And so here, Al Ewing spent 2-3 years giving us this beautiful argument for, the Beyonder, this complicated creature. And then here's Jonathan Hickman being like, yeah, here's a table of the Beyonder's lobotomized brain. Let's move on, shall we? And there's something about trying to rectify those two ideas that when you get to things like Amazing Spider-Man and Immortal Thor, my frustration is both kind of like tenfold and lessened. Number one, I hate this cover. I hate this cover so much because number one, it's very attractive. It's very attractive, but it says nothing. It's so chaotic. The colors are beautiful. The lines are beautiful. The ideas are beautiful. If I were an executive or an editor going, oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. But if I was the assistant editor working under that editor, I'd be like, did he notice how insane this cover is? Did anybody tell him? No, it's fine. Okay, it's fine. He's a white man. No one's going to question it. So, I just think this cover says nothing at all. I can barely see the God's character on it. I don't know that that's a God's character to me. The fact that there's so much webbing kind of obscuring this character out means that it's even unnecessary stuff. And I see that the idea is to create an iteration of this character with their own magical sorceress webbing. But it's all so consumed in what is an unbalanced color tonality. We have these bright blasting lights, and then we have this blue, and everything else is this earthy, heavy hue. It's even a dark navy blue. It's the heavier side of that vibrant red. And I just wind up feeling like this cover doesn't tell me anything. Meanwhile, the page itself is one of the more informational pages that I actually really appreciated getting the information. So, I don't know. By this point, my notes have gotten a little more scathing. Looking back over them, I'm a little bit like, I'm ready for this to be over.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And then we get to this one line of dialogue here, and I'm confused if editorial screwed up one way or the other. Does Win have an act like, is Win a foreign speaker who says things like, I just liking watching you run around, which is fine, totally cool. We see those all the time. But then his dialogue every other time we've seen him makes no sense because he speaks what would seem to be perfectly
it's just as possible it's meant to be, I'm just liking watching you run around and no one caught it.
Or I just like, and the dialogue was something entirely different, and the letter is screwed up.
Yep.
There's any number of possibilities. It's okay, but
hammering your mule, I call it, tripping the donkey, but like, good grief.
And it's actually hamming your mule. Weirder.
Oh gosh, and I'm like, is that like getting your goat?
Are we making the mule into ham?
Ham. It's either getting your goat,
Hey,
choking your
ham
chicken. There's something happening here.
So okay, whatever.
Tawny Katane was my cherry pie. That's all I know.
I love that. It's tough to have a mistake in a bunch of single issue stories, only because like now I'm like I've got a laundry list of questions that maybe don't matter. And
if you only have one line and you flub it, it's
too bad. Like, because everybody makes mistakes. Life is difficult. I've got a lot of leeway.
Life is difficult.
Life is tough, man. I get it. I'm not trying to be like, you should never have had a mistake in here. But I now am the recipient of said mistake because you've put me in a world where I have to pick up 8 different issues of 8 different books and flip to the back page and compile this information. So it's probably best if you work really hard not to do these things. So anyway, now I don't know. Also, Dimitri has gone from a slight little Frost Twink brother to also on the cover of that Moon Knight thing, like someone's jacked dad.
Every now and then you look at him and you're just like, this guy did the Trend 30-day challenge.
Yeah, I mean, the head to shoulder ratio is insane on this motherfucker. I don't know what to do with it. Okay, he's anybody. He's whoever you want. Is this magic? I could be.
If he walked into Payless, they would literally just be like, sir, we don't have shoes for you.
We don't carry them for you. You just put cloth on your feet, you fucking freak.
We have a placemat for you.
But yes, he clearly fucked those vampires. Congratulations. He can be a blood bank and not get turned. Love that for him.
Like Kim Dawson in every Skinamax movie, he did what needed to be done.
And they ride a multiversal blimp boat. I love it. I'm sold on the blimp boat. Okay.
But now let me talk for a moment about one of the things that I notice very much defines this series.
Yeah.
Shape. There are no hard lines so far. Everything is about rounded curvature. Everything is about an excessive need to avoid edges. Even when you look at the Tesseracts,
I was going to say, except them cubes.
Oh no, I would look at them.
But all the lines are at angles. There's no straight up and down or side to side line.
Yeah.
The lines are even fuzzy and broken in places.
Yeah.
There's this too. They're all angled lines. There's no straight up and down lines. Yep.
This book is so about skew and about round and bend that the nature of this ship was the first thing that I said, oh, we're finally getting somewhere. Now I know what something looks like that doesn't just look like something on Krakoa. Not a knock about Schiti and Hickman, but perhaps this was too on the heels of the Krakoan age to feel like its own thing.
Yeah, and like maybe that would have been okay. I want to throw that out there too. Like maybe hewing this a little closer to that might have been a move.
Maybe Ileana could have been involved a little bit more. You know?
Yeah, especially anything that would have kept us from Fall of X. Anyway, on to the next one.
All right, let's hit this was my least. it's so hard because I still give this book. I read Immortal Thor #1 and I give it a B, but giving it a B when I've read all of Immortal Hulk and give that an A, except for the artist, I was real bummed that this book was a B for me. More than that, this page was the biggest waste of my time. I don't even understand. It almost felt to me like Hickman looked into a notebook and was like, oh shit, I never used this page from Time Runs Out. Okay, let's just change it a little bit. And that's what we got. I had to ask myself, wait, is this a Thor character or is this a God's character? And then I had to ask myself, wait a minute, is this just a non-glowing Tesseract? Like, the amount of this gave me nothing. This was the give him nothing challenge. I didn't realize that Rue was dancing at the finale. This was so give him nothing. I was a little disappointed in this one, on top of the fact that the conundrum of what can Immortal Thor with that stupid 3D The Immortal logo up in the upper left-hand corner over there, what can this offer me? What does this have for me that I haven't already gotten? I saw Fatal Attraction. I saw Basic Instinct. So what does Wild Things have for me? Okay?
But it ended up having a lot, so.
It really did. Kevin Dillon, real look. Anyway.
Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillon.
Bacon.
Kevin
Bacon.
Bacon. Yo,
yes,
but Kevin
Kevo,
Dillon
we're
would
on
be
the
a
same
real
page.
handsome guy.
Isn't there a Kevin
Yeah.
Dillon?
There is now. Hey, Kevin Dillon, you're handsome.
Yeah, there is Kevin. He's his brother. He's the one on Entourage.
Oh, no. Sorry, man. You're not that handsome.
No,
Please continue.
you're weird looking. Brian Hitch is weird. That's fine. Yeah, Tyr the Lost Odin's son, the child we don't care about.
The guy for whom Tuesdays are named.
Because we got
Woden
Angela
Wednesday, Thor Thursday, Frigga Friday, Tyr Tuesday.
Right, and then the rest of them are Romans. Your braids look banging. I don't know. This one, I actually liked this one a little bit because it's just funny making somebody get in a box. And, he doesn't.
When Howie
he
Mandel
can't fit
does it,
in
they
there.
file
There's
FCC
clearly something
charges.
wrong. He can't fit in that box. So already it's very comical. It's like a clown car. And then, some creepy voice is like, everything's better in the box. Like, it's very it.
The one thing I do love is that it's very like Rockaway betting. I promise you will not like it, you will love it. Anybody who grew up with like local access Staten Island commercials knows exactly what I'm saying.
If I fits, I cease to exist.
Yeah. This is your new home. I don't know. It was just ominous and creepy enough, and then plus I didn't have to deal with any of these new randos that I still don't get. I just got a box. I love just like a talking box.
I also, I love when the box talks back.
Don't. We're moving right on from that one.
So then I guess we'll just talk about the fact that I thought Dimitri was Don Blake on this cover.
Yeah. Yet another like mid-sized person for him to be. He's no longer a twink or a giant. We've Goldilocks him, and he's just Guy.
We found the Camry size that Dimitri should be. No F-350s for him. Not a Miata any longer.
I also love that Tyr has just like vaguely feminine features in a lot of ways.
You know what? Like I was literally thinking, oh, he's like a femme Burt Reynolds. Like,
yeah, exactly. There's just something about it that I just really. He's a very pretty. He's a very pretty dude, and I like that. And now he's in a box.
Anyone who's ever made out with somebody with like a really thick mustache knows that guy knows exactly what that mustache is.
Yeah.
Like he is confident he's gonna rub that on your upper lip, and that sass face. That's a lot. Something I didn't comment on that I kind of wanted to comment on the Doctor Strange page, but I kind of don't want to comment on it because I don't like saying that artists necessarily did a trace or a swipe. I think that's really lowbrow, and I think that's unless you can like literally point to the image, I don't think it's the right move. I kind of can't help but think like Doctor Strange on every one of those Doctor Strange panels looks exactly like Tom Cruise. It's a
Oh my
little hard
gosh.
to miss.
I so see it.
Down to the center tooth, my friend. It
Yeah.
is tough to look at. I actually think that this interpretation of Tyr, while I likened him to, a classic masculine, identity, he looks really unique. And that's
Yeah.
something that I think is really important to consider. Sometimes when you associate a character with something, like we keep saying Dimitri doesn't have enough physical body identity yet. His body looks unsure. So we don't know if he's buff, if he's skinny. We look to that to recognize a character. If I see a skinny Daredevil, it's automatically 1960s or Chris Samney. Nothing else. There's no other version of Daredevil that is a skinny boy. If I see him looking mid, he's anybody but Scotty McDaniels. And if he did the 30-day trend challenge, well, then, my friend, then Daredevil is probably being drawn by Scotty McDaniel. Something I really appreciate is that when you've got a character like Tyr, who admittedly, like I said, I had to make sure he was Tyr. I really love that I don't automatically come to the table with who he is. And that's another testament to the fact that they chose to use a varied creative team to tell these 10 pages and 10 covers. It's a real testament to the idea that they wanted to make this seem believably part of the Marvel Universe.
And this is one of the ones that really did feel to me a little bit more believably part of the Marvel Universe, which is funny because it's kind of a C-list character that hasn't been crazy relevant in the last decade. But yeah, anyway, I did, for me, I liked this one, even just like kind of more as a break.
Yeah. And until Monica decides to leave him a voicemail, I'm going by the mustache here, saying he's Tom Selleck, who
I got it.
Tom Selleck or
I'm
Burt
crazy.
Reynolds. It's not even a question. Tom Selleck is 10 times hotter than Burt Reynolds. Like,
Yeah.
not even a question.
Agreed.
Tom Selleck has daddy vibes. Burt
Yup.
Reynolds has used you and dump you on the side of the road like the used prostitute. He's going to make you feel like vibes. And that's
Mean
not
uncle
my-
vibes.
Yeah.
Mean uncle vibes. But you know who's got mean uncle vibes but is trying to work through them? Venom.
Venom.
I hate this cover. God, I hate this
Venom.
cover. First of all, I do love that Kevo is saying it as though it is a Blackpink song.
The Venom theme from the Venom movie, whichever one. I think it's the Eminem one where he's like, "Gotta,
Yeah.
I hate this cover. First of all, that is a Blackpink cover right there.
Yeah.
But
Venom in your area."
the thing that I don't like about this cover is that it lacks identity, and it's striking to me because this cover is by Martin Coccolo, who is a brilliant artist. The colors are by Matthew Wilson. I have such respect for these artists. I just thought the cover was forgettable in every way. It just looks generic. I feel like Venom is missing a lot of the definitive elements that make Venom Venom. Something I really appreciate is, I made that joke about boobs before, but like, I'm not trying to be mean, but like, yeah, as a pansexual man, if you show me a giant pair of boobs, I'm just going to be like, that's just a pair of boobs. Show me a person attached to that pair of boobs, and I'm going to be like, wow. Same thing with like, it's a great butt, or like, any other part you want to attach to a guy or a girl. That's beautiful, but like, without the character attached, I don't really associate that with sexuality. Without any sort of identity attached to that Venom image, I don't associate it with a man trying to struggle through being a monster. I just see a big and like, I can lick my nose. Having a big tongue doesn't make you special. And so like, when I see this cover, I just sort of feel like this misses the point. Whereas the art in this page that Kevo is so beautifully scrolling right now, this is some of the best art we've talked about this episode.
I do think it's very cool. Back to the cover, generally the one character that I've had some like legit criticism for is Aiko Maki. There just feels like a lot of weird, and I really hate seeing her pitted against Venom because it really has that like delicate Asian woman, but she's exotic because she has white hair.
We never called that out when it was in Deadpool the manga, which was our read of 2023. So like,
well, yeah, because one of the main characters, Sakura Spider, is not she's a thick girl. Like, she is drawn with big hips. She is not a like petite, feminine, white-haired Asian woman. Like,
Yeah,
I don't love this design. I can see if
like
you
Angelina
told me,
Jolie playing an anime character.
yeah, it's exactly the vibe. If you told me that Jan Basil Dua or a female creator of some kind had designed this character, I might feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Again, I'd probably rather that, like, okay, if you had told me that Peach Momoko had designed this character, an Asian woman who can kind of set forth a design aesthetic. Yeah.
I think that there should be a policy at Marvel where they say, you know what, we've got to stop saying one Asian woman is all Asian women, right?
Exactly.
Because
exactly.
TK, you are literally the nerd I most want to be in my life, but there's stuff we don't agree about. And like when we talk a little bit about the identity that is required to shape a character that has cultural significance, I can't think of two Asian women because, number one, Asia is a continent. It's not a thing you are. Right. So when we say Asian women, we're including the beauty of a Russian woman with the complex nature of a Japanese woman with the historical significance of a Korean woman. We're saying like a continent. So the varied experience. So you should have to have somebody like an Annie Wu balance out everything designed by a Peach Momoko, because Asian heritage is so many things.
Yeah.
The only right way to treat these things is to have both versions. I would have loved a version of New X-Men that was also in spandex. So just like maybe do two versions of some character designs. I know how hard that would be, but you're really helping me remember why I care about the nature of shifting identity in a protected class.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, and I think Valerio Schiti is an incredible artist and designer. I know so many of these people don't do these things with ill intent. I know they maybe don't always do them with like the best intent. And I just, on top of everything where I'm just like, the delicate white-haired Asian woman, I really do not like her on the cover opposite Venom, just like petite. Just she's small, and don't worry about it.
There's like, I certainly make fun of me for it because I'm a pansexual man, so all I think about are genitals, but like there is something about the fact that she is specifically covering his genitals.
Yeah.
And her body is the color of his symbology. The white on his suit like extends directly into her. There is something about the fact that she kind of looks in a way like the shape of his spine. And I can't look away from the fact that this cover is designed in a way where she is encased within him. There isn't an inch of her outside of the boundaries of him. And I think that that's something that the other covers didn't have. Don't get me wrong. I love a big monster like Venom. Super hot. But it sort of occasionally falls into the nature of how we portray Venom as a monster on covers, but then expect him to be a hero in the book. No, I can't do that. I can't do he's a big mean monster, but he's actually sweet inside. Then he should have a kinder something in the visual. And then he's not even in the damn page. This beautiful page, best page of the 10. This stunning page straight out of Hoxpox, straight out of 10 of Swords. But even then, I look at these masks and I'm like, they look like Annihilation.
Yeah.
They look like other things. And while I love what they look like, and I love that they look like those things, it's difficult because Jonathan Hickman and in many ways Valerio Schiti, by being a part of that Hoxpox movement and specifically designing the nature of Sword as a response to S.H.I.E.L.D. for the X-Men, Valerio Schiti is responsible for so much of the visualization of that era. It's sort of like saying, oh, but John Byrne can draw something that doesn't look like the Dark Phoenix Saga. No, he can't because he drew the Dark Phoenix Saga. Sorry about it, but it happened. I don't know what you want me to say, but like when you look at Meryl Streep, you're always going to think, oh, that's Meryl Streep. Sorry, you're too talented. But that is what's happening here. Valerio Schiti's art is so significant because of how talented he is. How can you not see it when you look at it?
Yeah. I back to the original idea. These are gorgeous set of panels, and I think in a lot of ways this does what I expect a one page to do. It's very simple. It introduces us to a little bit. It doesn't ask too much. It doesn't give too little. Maybe this Lion of Wolves and the something Fond du Lac, whatever the hell it is.
I don't know, but they look like they would make out in a musical.
Nimue du Lac, that's what it is. I don't.
They look like they're from The Magicians. That's what they look
do.
like.
They're very ominous. I get it. This is magic. At the end of all of this, it just it comes off to be a little bit much, but really gorgeous panels. I am, as critical as I've been, I am really excited. I just experienced. I mean, the point of this early on was that experiencing it in this way, I think maybe was not the move that Marvel thought it was.
And I think part of that has to do with the fact that Marvel is always trying to anticipate how their fans are going to react instead of actually accepting a reaction, which is why we're constantly saying that comics don't need to, as an industry, change, but the nature of the dissemination of comics needs to change. We've talked about how, I'm tired of knowing for a month or 2 months now something about a February book at Marvel. That bothers me, not because I'm unwilling to wait 7 months, but because you're going to tell me that 16 things between now and then are the big thing, and they're not, which is where Immortal Thor comes in. I have been very tepid about gods, right? But as a guy who grew up feeling like someday I will just transform into the muscle king of my dreams, I just, really attached to Thor. And I really spend a lot of time on this show talking about Thor-related projects. I have a whole thing where I refer to someone who can't let go of an era of their own design as Jason Aaron complex. Like, I have a lot of things to say about Thor. I don't think there is room for Immortal Thor to exist in a world in which gods exists. Because when you take a look at something like Marvel Comics 1000, you're talking about a book in which Al Ewing wrote 20 out of 60 pages. The guy is responsible for a third of it, and it's him shaping the experience of the Marvel Universe. It's him saying, this is how I see everything. Now, I'm not trying to talk about theology in more than my fair way, right? I've been fortunate enough to be part of several different theologies, and I have just, my own little white North American experience. But I am of the mindset that, when somebody says, I'm going to draw a tarot deck, right? They look at the idea of magic, they look at the idea of symbology, and they say, this is what I see in the world. That's what Al Ewing has done at Marvel for a decade now. And so when a guy like John Hickman, who is treated a little better, do you know the difference between Colin Jost and what's his name? Staten Island?
Pete Davidson.
Do you know the difference between the two of them? A celebrity has said one of them is enormously endowed and that one of them is just very sweet and funny. And even if being enormously endowed makes no difference, that the audacity of someone to say it came up transforms the ability to discuss the situation. Do I think that John Hickman has actually done more magical things shaping the face of the Marvel Universe? No. But he's done it with more BDE than Al Ewing has. Al Ewing has been content to sit on the sidelines and shape the Marvel Universe with a smile. Oh my God, but John Hickman's shadow is literally the definition of eternal winter. Good God, when the man comes on a book, he resets the bariatric pressure. I don't mean he changes the weather. I mean, you feel the weight of John Hickman pressing down on you as a writer. The notion that there is room for this emotional reflection of what makes, I don't know, mythology. It's every page of Immortal Thor. Immortal Thor is beautiful from beginning to end. Cuccolo, Juan Velasco, and Matthew Wilson do a beautiful job painting a picture of a mythological god Thor. He doesn't read like an Avenger. He doesn't read like a superhero. He reads like a god standing at twilight. But like literally the gods and gods joke about what small potatoes Thor is. You know, it's just to like personalize for a minute, I bench like, comfortably above 2 plates, right? Let's just go with that. And every now and then, one of the guys in my gym who is just running the best cycle you've ever seen, the guy is the fucking Tour de France. It's such a cycle. He comes in, puts 4 plates up there and just blows me out of the water. I'm like, oh, right. That's Thor. Thor's buff. Thor's hot. Thor's a god. There is no questioning that when Thor is on page, man, it's amazing. And that's how I feel when I do my thing in the gym. But literally, Gods is coming in and kicking Thor over. I just don't know that Marvel has the room, the gumption, the audacity. I'm gonna taste all over the god. Taste deserved to win. Bimini deserved to win. Bimini's amazing. Anyway, I just really feel like Gods invalidates the opportunity. Wow, Talir, that's a beautiful thing you just said. Wow, I'm so glad you're still here because your words are incredible. Hickman is Storm. Ironic given Ewing is writing Storm. And that's even something that comes up in one of the 1,000 pages. I think it might be written by Rainbow Rowell, unfortunately. But there's a page where everybody's like, wow, it's such a bad weather storm outside. What's going on with Storm? And they're like, oh, she's just in her feels. And that's like the whole page. Oh, no, it's Anna Senti. And that's the whole page. But yeah, that's a great metaphor. When John Hickman comes in, he is the storm. But when Al Ewing comes in, he's writing about the storm. He has a lot of really great feelings about the storm. And that's sort of what I'm always saying about a Gene Kelly versus a Fred Astaire. Gene Kelly is sex while Fred Astaire dances about sex.
Put $1 in the jar.
I don't know that I 100% agree. I think part of
End the show.
I think part of the issue is that Marvel isn't giving Ewing the chance.
Agreed.
I don't think that Hickman's cosmology is better. I think Hickman's cosmology might be worse.
I think Hickman's cosmology reflects a guy who has a lot of spreadsheets, but not always how to execute the script.
Yeah, for one thing, I don't know if Hickman's going to follow through on all this. I don't know if we're going to get, for all that we did follow through on everything from how Secret Wars started to where it ended. I don't know what that gave us. I don't know where that left us. We did not reorganize our multiverse. We did not get a better understanding of the Beyonders, of any of the massive forces of creation, of the hierarchy. Yeah.
Talir, you have to make a decision now, because now that we're talking about this, I think we have to have a conversation about Ultimate Fallout or Ultimate whatever it's called. Talir, you vote. Are we going to cover the current Ultimate John Hickman arc or not?
Ooh.
Ultimate whatever it is.
Ultimate Invasion.
Oh, God, the name is bad.
Yeah. And that's another great example. I don't know that that's going to give us anything real. Like, will it maybe bring the Ultimate Universe?
I don't care. It's got Maker.
I know.
You know my feelings about Maker. Best villain in the history of the Marvel Universe.
And I don't necessarily disagree, but like for all that Secret Wars and Time Runs Out and all of that did
7 years ago,
all of which was really cool, I didn't end with a better understanding of how the Celestials creating the Beyonders as a like sort of check and balance for the Celestials. I didn't have any better understanding of how that idea of the Marvel cosmology works. And right now, like, if we do gods and we talk about the powers that be versus the natural order of things, like one of my big questions is, Hickman, you were the last person who decided what the ultimate forces moving and shaking the Marvel universe were. And again, it was Celestials and Beyonders. And are
They
you
didn't
gonna
let Jason Aaron have an opinion?
are you gonna tell us how these the powers that be and the natural order of things play into that? Like, do they supersede it? I don't know, and I don't know that you know, and I don't know that you're gonna tell me. And I don't know that that's going to lead into something. But you know who I think would have an idea and has their own ideas about all of that stuff? Al Ewing, 100%. And I think he's been trying to tell them to us. What? What'd you look up?
You know when? No, I didn't look up anything. You know when your phone is like, you have an alert set for this?
Yeah.
There's a rumor for what Andrew Lloyd Webber is using the Cinderella Theater for, that he's going to bring to the U.S. in 2025, and if it is, we're all going to Broadway. If Starlight Express really is
Oh my God,
Broadway
yes!
in 2020, you guys can see why I had to
second
literally
time seeing Starlight Express.
I had to pause the entire show because the possibility of Starlight Express coming to Broadway in my lifetime is
Yep.
that's top
Done.
That's
Yep.
top 5.
Bring Jane Krakowski back.
Oh my God, nothing but positive things to say about 1980s Andrew Lloyd Webber. 1980s only. So, no, Bombay Dreams was great. Now, to jump onto what you're saying, TK, I think the thing that Al Ewing brings to the table that I love is like, Al Ewing is an improvist. And like, when we talk about improvists, we're talking about people who know how to let loose and experience the moment with a group of people. Even when Tori Amos is improvising with her band and she goes to tell them that they're not doing another loop of the song, she's communicating with them, but in a way that helps shape the experience for the audience. The audience might not see the hand, but the hand indicates to keep everything tight. In that way, Al Ewing is a beautiful improvist. But you know what? Secret Wars is a dancer in the dark. That's a Bjork moment. That's everything I do is so thought and so progressive and so beyond the scope of at the moment ideas. And I just want to be clear that for every one of those two incredible women, there's a Cullen Bunn out there that's just perfunctorily being Ani DeFranco. And I actually am very positive on Cullen Bunn, but I am very positive on Cullen Bunn's independent work, and I kind of think his Marvel work is very boring.
Depends on the Marvel work, but yeah.
I think it's that Marvel doesn't understand how to let somebody like Cullen Bunn have fun.
Yeah.
Cullen Bunn is a fun guy. He's not I'm going to break all the rules guy.
Yeah.
And it's that thing I kind of keep alluding to, the difference between, like, I am the strongest guy in the gym. Cullen Bunn does not walk in and tell you he's the strongest guy in the gym, but Cullen Bunn walks in and tells you he can do the longest static hold at the heaviest weight you've ever seen. Marvel just isn't always ready to let somebody like Cullen Bunn, who I believe is one of the most award-winning writers of his generation, like not just in comics, like Cullen Bunn has the career we all wish we had. But, his name isn't sexy. His name isn't John Hickman. Now, all said and done, if you're giving me the choice, Cullen Bunn or Al Ewing, I want to be Al Ewing because I want to have a house. But I'd really rather be a John Hickman. And I think that's the problem that we run into. This is, Talir, just absolutely singing my fucking life tonight. My thing is, Krakoa works because you have decades of lush and deep history, so recycling high-quality materials is easier than shaping something wholly new and inserting it into a larger cosmology.
Yep,
That's what I always think is the difference between somebody like a Hickman and a Ewing. Hickman's here to tell you how cool everything he comes up with is, which is why Krakoa is his most shining example. It's something he came up with that's so steeped in tradition.
Right.
That's Ewing's whole bit. Ewing's whole bit is, have you read 150 issues of Defenders? Well, I'm going to reward you.
But like the thing is, I hadn't read 150 issues of Defenders, and I took so much away from that book. Yes, we do need this counter. But so I hadn't read all that much Defenders. I took so much away from that because I had read a lot of Jewish mysticism, which Ewing is pulling from so much in Defenders, in Immortal Hulk. So like there's just a lot there. Like he's doing what?
I've been reading so many bad takes on the internet about that lately. And like, look, I am lucky that of my 4 partners, look, I am the luckiest man on earth that my 4 partners are like the 4 greatest guys to ever walk the planet. But beyond that, 3 of my partners have Jewish heritage and 2 of them are practicing members of the Jewish faith. And occasionally I have seen some pretty bad takes on that about Ewing in the last couple of months, including things like, well, nobody ever complains about being Norse and seeing Thor. Find me a mass execution of the Norse people. Oh, y'all are just too pretty, blue-eyed, and blonde. Y'all just have way too strong a united healthcare. What? No. And like, yeah, I'm really glad you said something because I, as a practicing pagan who was raised Catholic, doesn't really feel like I have the right, despite the, intense passion of my partners and their families for their, Jewish faith. I don't have the right to talk about it the way you do. And even though I don't have the right to talk about it, it makes me angry. It makes me feel helpless to help people. And I don't think Al Ewing is doing it from a place of malice. I think he's doing it from a place of, did you know how beautiful the Jewish faith and Jewish mysticism is? But until you follow it up with, and here's a story about Kitty Pryde celebrating, the Sabbath with her family, I don't know that we're doing it right.
Yes, there's some of that I agree with. I think in general, Marvel's track record with Jewish characters, given that it's Marvel Comics founded by Stan Lee.
Over 400 stories about Christmas, 13 stories about Hanukkah. We did this holiday.
Yeah, not the best. Mysticism is always an interesting one because it's sort of a lot of the ideas really transcend their cultural contexts, especially in the ways of like people. They resonate with people. People consume them and they understand and they see things that relate to ideas that they're having about cosmology and metaphysics. And, a lot of citing Jewish mysticism that I see from people like Ewing is like, and Alan Moore being another great one. It's not so much like, let me steal from the Jews as so many have done, but it is, I had this idea. Someone pointed out to me that Jewish mystics actually thought of it 2,000 years ago. Let me make sure I properly attribute. And so it is really complicated. And ultimately, you point to something that is just no matter what true, and I really feel, which is I would just like to see more Jewish characters. My dream is to get in there and write, the Jewish mystic student at Strange Academy. A character that I could totally see be
Your
brought
nihilistic
in.
alt rock run on Strange Academy would fuck my dick right off.
Exactly. A character that I could totally see showing up and everybody being like, I had no idea this was a thing, is a Jewish mystic, like somebody at Doctor Strange's level, but who practices Jewish mysticism. And that's, there are far too few Jewish people in this world. It is very possible to like, there are so many people in this world who don't know a Jewish person, which is wild to me. But,
I've literally never considered that sentence in my life.
Yeah. I mean, we East Coast elites, we don't.
I grew up in a town that literally had as many synagogues as churches. I
know. Yeah. Once you get to those middle ones, you just.
The first non-Jewish bagel I had, I spit.
Yeah. So when we look at like, we are the people that run the universe, I I still am like, I mean, that's its own joke right there. But I'm talking about the gods people, like those elders of Zion, Win and his cohort. Like the fact that they're just like, nobody's ever heard of us, but we are super important. Still having trouble buying that. But you could convince me that somebody is like, yeah, I am a student of the Kabbalah and mystic truths of Judaism. And to have people be like, I have never heard of you, that to me is super plausible. Anyway, just to like bring that all around full circle, Ewing. Yeah, I mean, I wish somebody with more ties to Jewish characters and Jewish life were writing more Jewish stuff into the comics, but I'm glad that he's doing any of it. And I do see that he has such a vision for Marvel cosmology, and I've tracked it through so many things. I've seen glimpses of it from Hickman. I've seen really cool ideas, but I'm not seeing, as Talir pointed out, I'm not seeing the hard work that Hickman did to say, hey, everything you know about X-Men, here's one idea that I had that changes everything that we all know about X-Men and that we all love. And here's how I can love the X-Men's history in my own way. This is not so far saying to me everything we've known about Marvel cosmology. Here's one new idea. This is saying to me, here are 6 characters and their entire set of circumstances that I've jammed into what has been set before. And I just know Ewing was not doing that in all of the stuff he set up, including all of that stuff in those 20 stories in Marvel Comics 1000 with the Eternity Mask. Like, it's very silly, but he was putting in so much work. Like, that's what it takes sometimes.
You know, I'm very lucky that 3 of my 4 partners are on this show. And so like I have 3 of 4 of you to keep me in line at all times about this stuff. I one time gave a speech that like wound up being like nominated for like a public speaking award. And I was really proud of it, right? I gave this speech about HIV stigma and how if you think a person living with HIV, if you think the hardest part of their day is how they feel physically, you just don't understand how people make them feel about their blood. You just don't understand. And I thought I was a genius for this speech. And then I heard someone who has experienced being HIV positive talk about that. And I understood that I was at best pretending. I thought the coolest thing as a kid was listening to Madonna sing Oshanti on Ray of Light. I just thought her exploring, other forms of mysticism and her Kabbalah studies was really beautiful. And then my older boyfriend from Israel talked about what that song meant to him. And I quickly learned that there is a wealth of difference. Now, Chris Claremont's Judaism is non-practicing. So I want to just say that. But we all talk a lot about X-Men 200. And the study in what that means to be Jewish is very different than the exploration of Kabbalistic magic in Defenders. And that's the question. Is it okay to study Kabbalistic magic in the pages of Defenders and not really make the statement of, I am a Jewish person and this is what my family has lost? As a Cuban man who will never know his Cuban family, and as a queer man who will never have queer forefathers to look to and thank for all that they did, it's tough. And I think that's a little bit what Al Ewing's work has brought out in this show. That's a little bit what we've talked a lot and circled a lot around. There's 10 people whose opinions I need on this topic. But more than anything, I just kind of want to say, Al Ewing, no one thinks you've done a disservice. At least I don't. And I don't know anyone who does. But we are reaching a point where, is faith something you can wear? Is faith something you can badge? For me, it's tough. I don't want anybody badging up queerness. So I just want to thank you, TK, for making me smarter. And I would really appreciate it if you would take the final word on this topic, because it is certainly yours to have.
I think you nailed a lot of it. And I think part of the idea is that a lot of times having really good intentions and being a great ally and being well spoken actually can carry you a lot of the way, and does really give you an ability with sort of the go ahead of your peers who come from certain communities to say a thing or two. And I think I know a lot of Jewish people, myself and my partner included, who like what Ewing is doing and who kind of don't get to see enough Jewish mysticism in the world. And so we're okay with it. Is there always more we can be doing? Absolutely. But
You hear that, Natalie Portman?
don't get me started. But yeah, I mean, Marvel as a whole, I would really just like to see more Jewish identity. Your company wouldn't be here without it. And if people like the amazing, brilliant Al Ewing want to use concepts from mysticism, just do your best to give some Jewish people some opportunity to participate and have some stake as well. It's, this is another one where I'm like, life's just tough, man. Like, I also know that if he's like, hey, I want to use these ideas, but like, it doesn't feel right to me. Marvel's not going to be like, here is some extra money. Definitely hire a Jewish mysticism consultant. Take this extra like living salaries worth to hire this person. You should definitely do this. No, they're going to be like, is there a Jewish actor that's going to be in a Marvel movie?
Hey, Adam Goldberg, you're so hot. What are you doing?
Can we pair you with somebody soon? Is there an Akiva somewhere in the mix that we can bring in here to help you write this comic?
Tova Felsha. What are you doing this Rosh Hashanah?
Can we call upon the ghost of Golda Meir to ask questions?
Or her non-kosher father, Oscar Mayer?
Hey. So, I get that, like, a lot of times the choice is either don't use the ideas at all or use them, and not really necessarily be able to have a Jewish person nearby. I don't know. This is not a topic that there is an easy answer to, but always do your best to do right by the cultures that you love and are referencing and aren't necessarily a part of.
There isn't an easy answer, but there's an honest answer, which is I don't want somebody telling me how to be gay.
Yeah.
And more specifically, I'm pansexual, and it's like tough because like I don't know how to even explain it to somebody, but like I am not capable of sustaining an ongoing emotional bond with a woman. But I think women's bodies are a treasure and a gift and should be treated with respect and talked about as though they are beautiful, all shapes and sizes, 1,000%. I have all those same urges toward men's bodies, but I also have the ability to sustain ongoing relationships with men. And so part of what happens there is I feel like I'm constantly put in a position to explore, explain, and define the quality of being a pansexual man. Now, sexuality is something that's true to the kind of the core of your DNA. And I know for many people, faith runs such a deep level. And the idea that you can be raised within a faith, step out of the faith of that culture, but then you're still in the culture. I think because of that, there's a lot of, Andrew Garfield, hottest actor on the fucking planet, being the biggest fan of Drag Race he can be and not being openly, outwardly queer. I think then, by that same token, there's probably a number of actors, writers, and performers, and maybe even just general people in your life who were raised within the Jewish community and identify within the Jewish community and do not practice the faith. As such, the Jewish community becomes a dressing. It becomes something you can wear as part of your cultural identity, your culture suit. And it makes elements of that faith and that mythology, just the nature of any faith having a mythology, not to say that the Jewish faith is a mythology. it makes it seem as though that is mythology you can appropriate. So, is it easy? No, but the answer is actually easy. I don't want a straight person telling me how to queer, and I certainly don't want a gay person telling me how to pan. So, I think as long as Al Ewing continues to treat Judaism and the study of Hebrew divinity and, Jewish mysticism with the same level of authoritative academia, not that he is always the expert, but that he believes in research, then I think we're going to be okay.
Yep. I think you nailed it.
All right. Now, I do want to still... Do you still got an hour in you?
I do not know if I have an hour in me. I also don't really know if we have an hour left of stuff to talk about. I know you could go on for an hour, but I don't know that there is that for...
Well, I want to start with Deadpool, Wolverine, and Spectacular Spider-Man number 1000. I remember being friends with the editor, the assistant editor, the associate editor. I don't remember.
Somebody on editorial.
With Wolverine at the time, and saying specifically, is this really like, did you count up all of the issues? And is this really like, can you like account for 1,000? And the editor said to me, no, you moron. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm stupid for thinking that you would label it properly. Well, this is kind of the end of that, because with the exception of things like Amazing Fantasy 1000, which are, there have been 1,000 Spider-Man stories. There have been 1,000 Deadpool stories. There have been 1,000 Wolverine stories. Actually, Marvel is pretty hardcore about those numbers nowadays. If they put 700 on that book, it's because that is the 700th issue, and they will prove it to you with a spreadsheet. So, I want to say that while what we are discussing never represents the 1,000th issue of any title, what we are discussing represents the idea that there have been 1,000 issues of these characters, which denote the value of this character's cultural cash. So, with that said,
I mean, I buy it.
Deadpool number 1000, sexist, kind of racist, kind of troubling. Oh, wait, here's something that's better than Deadpool 1000. I think it's complicated because there is Judaism as a culture and ethnicity versus Judaism as a religion. The first is who you are, and the latter is something you can choose. And I think that has to do with how you see religion. I know, like, my dad is a Roman Catholic, and if you told him he could choose being a Roman Catholic, probably gouge his eyes out in protest. But, like, I believe in disorganized religion. So, Marvel Comics is my religion. Deadpool 1000 was the first 1000 book Marvel did. It was a nightmare. I just read it today. Shit show. Horrible. Wolverine 1000 actually read like 4 one-shots that they had commissioned, decided that 4 one-shots would cost too much, but if you pack them all into something that costs $6.99, maybe you make your money back. But I just think you can look at these 3 covers and you can see that initially the 1000 line got about as much complete thought as a commercial on Bing.
Well, now those are all just AI generated. I mean, these 3,
Great,
these are whatever.
actual no thought.
Yeah, exactly. Literally not a thinking device. These are a little bit older.
2010 to 2012.
Yeah, they're of a different era. Ultimately, the 1000 line is an anthology storyline. That's what they are. And anthology storylines are always a product of their era. This is not the best era for any of these titles. Deadpool is like only kind of now in a really good era. And Black, White, and Blood, another great anthology line that actually features all of these characters, I believe. Is there a Spider-Man Black, White, and Blood?
No, and that's one of those things where that
should
has to be that they are just so afraid of making,
Yeah.
like, they're afraid of making Spider-Man a man's man. There should be a Venom Black, White, and Blood, but there isn't because they don't want to do that to Venom. There's a Carnage Black, White, and Blood instead.
But there is a Deadpool and there is a Wolverine, and they are a great compilation.
And an Elektra and a Moon Knight.
Yeah. And they're a great compilation of stories. Some of them are not great, some of them are, but they come from a little bit further along, and so they tend to. We can kind of expect better. 2010 just isn't a good time to expect good Deadpool stories. So
2010 is just a tricky time in comics in general. There was such an idea behind that, like Marvel was trying to continue what they were doing. DC was convinced that if they just reset everything, people would like them. It was a tough time to be a comic fan in general.
But I don't hate the concept, and I really love the 2019 and on 1000s that are on our list.
And I only want to say that what's weird is Deadpool is 10 random stories, all bad, pretty much. Yeah. Wolverine, 5 random stories, but it has the worst set of errors I've ever seen. And the title page only includes 4 of the 5 stories. And one of the 5 stories is mislabeled by the wrong name.
What?
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. And
right.
Again, I know the editorial team from this time, and they were incredible. They were the best editorial team I've ever known to be fans of comics. They would literally put in till 3 a.m. on Fridays just to make sure the book went out right. So I don't know how this happened.
Well, I imagine that it was a period where they were told, get that one book out by 3 a.m. and then stay till 4 and finish the Wolverine one. And at that point, you're just sleep deprived and miserable. At this point, I'm not here to critique because these 3 are also not super well remembered or referenced, and frankly, neither are the Marvel Comics Amazing Fantasy Marvel Age ones.
Bizarre, yeah.
But they're closer in time. 2, they could be they're a little bit better reference, I think, in large part because they feature a lot of cult classic and social media beloved writers and artists doing really gorgeous little one-shots. Like Teenie Howard has in Marvel Comics 1000 just the simplest X-Men story. It's Teenie Howard, right? I always confuse Teenie Howard and Leah Williams. I feel terrible for it.
They both have stories, so it's just a great opportunity to like them both. But Teenie Howard has Historia X, which is the exploration of Kia Asayama on Uncanny X-Men.
Oh no, that's not the one. Okay.
Oh, then you might be thinking of Nope, that's the one. Teenie Howard has that one. So let me look up which one Leah Williams has. Leah Williams has 616's Best Stress Testers in Marvel Comics 1001, which is Jubilee, Dazzler, Gambit, and Boom Boom, all trying to blow up Emma Frost in Diamond form,
which
is
actually
so good.
So maybe it is Historia X, but it's the one. It's just 3 panels. They've been hated, they've been feared, and they've been heroes, and it's just 3 eras of X-Men.
It's that's the Historia X.
Yeah. Okay, and that's just like something that Teenie Howard is a great social media presence. The art on that is amazing. And it's something that like somebody will say, like, I just remember that being a really great story, or Teenie Howard will like post a picture of it and be like, flashback to that time I wrote an amazing, like 6-sentence X-Men story or a 3-sentence X-Men story. There is a lot of that in these later ones, a lot of great writer and artist pairings, a lot of stuff like kind of worth sharing around. And I think it's something that sets them apart from these early 3. And then even like Amazing Fantasy kind of doesn't even have that.
Amazing Fantasy, I remember, was like one of the, okay, you know what? We're shutting the show down. We are moving to YouTube. We're not going crazy about these releases Wednesdays at 9 a.m. anymore. I want to just say that of these 3, The one that's sort of like a what the fuck is Spectacular Spider-Man is one story. It's one Spider-Man versus Punisher story. In 2011, was Spider-Man really more popular than Punisher? I don't think so. I don't know. He had just come off as Superior, and while I think Superior Spider-Man is a blast, it's problematic at the bare minimum. So I also really appreciate a good Frank Castle as the bad guy story. Okay, but I just need to clarify because this Spectacular Spider-Man story was tough. The plot is Peter teaches at this school. This jock bullies this nerd. The jock has gotten up to bad stuff. And Peter stops Punisher from killing him for what he's gotten up to. The guy then goes to school the next day wearing a Spider-Man shirt, and his bully pulls a gun on him. Peter, as the teacher, breaks the fight up, but then the bully is like kicked off the football team. So his dad goes to beat him, and the guy remembers the fight between Punisher and Spider-Man that he saw and beats his dad up, but lets his dad live. But then meets a guy who's like, I'll help you meet Spider-Man. And he's like, oh, well, then I'll be a bad person. Goes to jail and vows to be a villain. I don't know what the fuck I read. It was like 32 pages, and then it's followed up by Amazing Spider-Man 129, which is the first appearance of Punisher. And it was just a waste of my time. Deadpool was offensive. Wolverine was actually really pleasant. There's one story where a young woman is like obsessed with Wolverine, and she has a Wolverine doll, and Wolverine's like, you don't need adamantium claws to be brave. You're brave just because you have a hero. How scary is it to admit you have a hero? And then she beats up these muggers and defends herself when she almost gets mugged. Wolverine doesn't come into the picture at any point. So, like, Wolverine 1000 has some great moments, but Spider-Man 1000, I literally sat back and said, give me my money back, you thieves.
Yeah, I don't have anything more to say on any of these.
Well, then I just want to jump to the Marvel Comics 1000 collection, which went year by year through the complete list of all of the years that Marvel was around. Now, I don't plan on reading 80 years worth of facts because that would be really boring. But I want to mention that some of the things that they went out of their way to highlight are not things that Marvel really gives a shit about. Namora gets exactly zero respect, so that they went out of their way to be like, Namora's introduced back in the year 1947. I just want to be like, great, maybe treat her with any respect then. They use modern Miss America, the, breathtaking Latina, for the 1943 introduction of Miss America page, but that Miss America's most recent appearance is over in the pages of Ecstatics Presents Dead Girl Back from the Dead, where she's a super racist who only dates Tyke Alucard because he's a BBC. So you could have thought that out a little better, maybe. Then there's also some other really questionable inclusions. Like, I would not have given Rob Liefeld a single page in this book if I could have avoided it. But for every Rob Liefeld, there is a James M. Englehart, who is the guy who, like, if you've ever seen a commercial in your life for Aladdin on Broadway, that guy who sings Friend Like Me, who was so good they wrote him into every TV show that films in New York, James Englehart, Tony winner, wrote a Groot story in Marvel 1000. Like,
Wild.
And I had the pleasure of meeting him at a Comic-Con. He was standing 2 feet in front of me the year this comic came out, and I loudly talked about him to get his attention. And he was like, oh, thank you very much. And I was like, I'm gonna die. James Englehart just waved at me. He's got a story in Marvel Comics 1000, as do the creators of the modern trilogy of Spider-Man movies, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. They have a Spider-Man story up in this piece. But yeah, really, Marvel Comics 1000 and 1001, what these were meant to start, like the era of the Black Raider, the Masked Raider, the Black Mask, the Eternity Mask, this whole like vibe they were going for. This era started and stopped within a full year. It's a bummer.
Yeah. I just, that's it's what we were talking about at the start of the show. Like, I really read these thinking like, okay, Ewing's got a game plan.
This is it. This is the next Secret Wars.
Hickman is out. Hickman's doing a
Exactly.
new project. And I was never like, Hickman is out at Marvel. He's done. Because by this point, we already knew he was going on to something else. But I just really didn't think, given that we knew that Marvel had rights to the X-Men back, that Hickman leaving X-Men meant that he was going to another really big thing. Because I kind of thought, what's that?
Great read.
I kind of figured like X-Men actually is basically the biggest thing at this point. Like for Marvel Comics, because Marvel Comics is going to be the fertile soil from which stuff from the MCU and wider world comes out. So if you are the main guy writing the biggest stuff, if you are the guy writing X-Men, you are currently writing the biggest stuff in 2019, 2020, so that he leaves, which I think is totally fine. I'm not here to have a, like, he should have stayed on for 10 years. But because he left and was like, I'm going to work on a different project, I was like, that's probably like, somebody said a Moon Knight. I didn't really think a Moon Knight, but I thought maybe like a Doctor Strange.
Yeah, there was a lot of like, oh, he's going to revamp magic, or he's going to revamp the cosmos.
Yeah, which, I mean, ultimately he did. But I didn't think it was going to be something like that. I thought it was going to, like a Captain America, like an Iron Man, something iconic, but not, let me tell you how the systems on the back end work here at Marvel. It really seemed like the person that was doing that was Ewing. And it's throughout this Marvel Comics 1000. Then it was really in the pages of Defenders and Defenders Beyond. He got a lot out there, and it was also an incoming. There was a time where I was like, and then this clearly is going to dovetail with something that has been coming up in the pages of Timeless and in reprints. Miracle Man. I was like, Ewing is telling us how the Marvel cosmology as we have always seen it works. And maybe Jed McKay, but like I'm hoping Hickman, that's what I thought Hickman was going to work on. Miracle Man. We were all 100% certain that Hickman was going to Miracle Man, because Miracle Man is this iconic property that Marvel just got back, and Miracle Man literally can rewrite reality. So that is actually, thank you. Now I remember exactly what I thought was going to happen. Ewing is giving us, this is how, the Living Tribune, all of the abstract entities and all of the, mystic ideas in Marvel Comics works. Hickman comes in and says, this is how Miracle Man works, and this is how he interfaces with all of that stuff that Ewing has been telling you. And here is the unified new idea behind how Marvel Comics, with Miracle Man as its most powerful, can easily smack down the Celestials and the Beyonders entity. Here's how that all works now in this new era. And that even felt like something, if you're saying in 2019, we are building the ground for how the X-Men can be the most important property in the MCU. I could see after that it being Miracle Man. And I sort of kind of thought I had a real read on that. That's how things were looking. That's 2019, 2020, even going into 2021, 2022. But now we're getting like, if you in a 6-month period see one page of new Miracle Man story, that's in itself a miracle.
And it's probably in Marvel previews, and they're going to cancel the title anyway.
And Ewing is not doing any of this stuff. So they just, all of this stuff, all the ideas they dropped.
And I have to wonder what led to that. Like, the problem for me winds up being they put such an effort behind saying Marvel is an overall universe. It's an experience. The Marvel project. It's comics, it's movies, it's TV shows, but it's even these things that you don't see coming, like Miracle Man. And then there was just this abandon of it. Yep. It was almost like somebody said, the car's going to keep moving, but we're going to cut the engine. Hope you're okay with it. And it sort of starts right away with Marvel Comics 1000. And I just want to say that there's so many lies on these two covers, despite so few words. It is 80 creative teams, but some of those creative teams are one person different. And that is like somebody inked this one and the penciler inked themselves on the outer story. They're not really 80 creative teams and one universe. Technically, Kickers Incorporated from the new universe appears in the pages of 1000 and 1001. Not all one universe. Barah.
One of them also has a Star Wars.
Yeah. One universe, manut. And so, like, the celebration of 80th anniversary of Marvel, troubling, because Marvel Comics 1000 didn't feel like an 80th anniversary special so much as there were a couple of pages that didn't fit in Marvel Comics 1000, almost like maybe they said Marvel Comics 1000 should be 100 pages despite being 80 years, and we'll have like extra couple of things peppered in throughout, which is why the material that runs through Marvel Comics 1001 is nowhere near as strong, which is unfortunate. You know, I think back on the fact that the most problematic creator in Marvel Comics right now is probably not, but could be Peter David. For the multitude of scary things he said, but one thing he has said that definitely deserves some credence is, oh, by the way, you don't need numbers, you have the date. And Marvel 1000 using the date for everything was brilliant. Marvel 1001 using the date for nothing was dumb as shit. There weren't even dates listed on the pages, and when the format of issue 1 is 80 pages listed by date, and the format of issue 2 is just 30 random pages, you make it seem like issue 2 had absolutely no thought behind it. So there's some cool stuff. There's a reference to Miles Morales and Kamala Khan, written by Vida Ayala and drawn by Humberto Ramos. Now, that's worth some fun. The Frank Thierry and Dan Panosian page that pays tribute to Ziggy Pig, Thanos, and Charles Atlas ads. I mean, Charles Atlas ads are why I lift weights. Like, you know, I am not, 2/3 pre-workout for no reason. So that page really definitely made my whole fandom smile. But like, there were pages where it was like Spider-Man's Spider Bite playing out on page, and the Inhumans and the Watcher in like what felt like a serious page being silly for no reason. 1001 felt like a waste of my money, more so than Amazing Fantasy 1000 did, but it's mostly because 1001 didn't need to exist, and 1000 for Amazing Fantasy just kind of felt like, oh, it's 1000 time. Let's just do our August 1000.
We really get into this thing of like needing to exist as a question. I will say that 1001, because it did not feature the 20 Al Ewing stories guaranteeing you that you're about to get your whole shit rocked by eternity. It's just, to me, it's like a bunch of cute, fine stories. You mentioned one of the best ones, Leah Williams. I'm looking at it right now. Leah Williams in the Blast Squad, just testing to make sure Emma Frost in diamond form is truly impervious.
Not even a scratch.
Not even a scratch. I love it. And like, that's just like, some of these are like, okay, I get it. Spider-Man lives in a neighborhood. He's friendly and he saves people. How many ways can you tell me that? Like, if you're going to do a Spider-Man story, and like, across all of these, 8 of these stories are like at Uncle Ben's grave, where we constantly hang out. And
look, no one is more attracted to old men than me on the planet. If you are 60 and can press 180, front of the line. But these books are more obsessed with sexualizing old men in art than me. And that's a line that you really need to think about crossing.
It's real weird. They're just, that is such, I was like, well, their third or fourth story where I was like, wait, are they at Uncle Ben's grave again? They hang out here a lot. They should have gotten him a mausoleum.
Leave him alone.
those were the ones where I was like, what are we doing here, friends? But like giving Leah Williams one page to say something that we've all like kind of, not all, but like we all have versions of this that we imagine. But the idea that Jubilee, Dazzler, Gambit, and Boom Boom all have similar powers and would get together and blast something. Like you would need that much firepower. Totally believable that it's actually Emma Frost just testing that she's still cunt as fuck. Yeah, like that's a great one page. Perfect.
That's
And
Michelle
to-
Visage just demonstrating Kegels for you on screen.
100%. And that to me throughout Marvel Comics 1000 and 1001, those are the best ones. Anytime you get a really great creative team together, and they tell you one story in one page that maybe it doesn't matter. Like this does not matter at all. The four of these characters can't blow up Emma Frost, doesn't matter. That's never going to come up. That is not a future that we're looking at.
Emma
This
Frost is a supervillain and can't be destroyed by 4 specific mutants.
This is not foreshadowing anything. These four don't hang out.
It's not the wedding of Tony Stark and Emma Frost.
That's a great way for that wedding to end. But it's just a funny, cool story that, like, even if you say it's in canon, it's still fun and cool and a little bit silly. The Watcher, Inhumans one, which is actually the next page, that can't actually really happen. The Watcher can't be fooled by Black Bolt doing shadow puppets, and they don't all sit there and make fun of him on the moon. That doesn't happen. Still cute, still fine. I don't really care about it. It's Nick Spencer. I don't really care about it, but that's fine too. I can take a compilation of these types of stories. The one before that is a great one by Will Murray with art by Derek Charm, which is just Squirrel Girl talking to Tippy Toe, having an existential crisis. So some of these are really great. Are they necessary? No. But then in 1000, when there was a group of necessary stories, they ended up not being necessary just by dint of the fact that Marvel didn't do anything with them. So at the end of the day, what do any of these matter? We don't know until later. That's really the tough part.
Yeah, and that's like, I think the hardest part for me about being a comic fan. You know, when you ask me as a TV fan, what do I like about television? Well, I like that it's there. I like that when I go to put on TV, I can watch TV. There is a show waiting for me. When you ask me about comics, god damn, it really varies week to week based on who's writing it, based on their interpretation of Spider-Man, based on so many things. My Inhumans are dry as fuck. My Inhumans are 20-year sober chips. They're that dry. But like, you know, my Watcher can maybe be a little funny. And that's kind of the gamut you run with these. I'll be honest, Amazing Fantasy, I liked 3 stories. You know, the first one, it's essentially just like Peter versus a mafia guy to remind you that Peter had a hard time when he lost his uncle. The second one is just like, what if Pete and MJ got old? The third one is like Spidey versus fake news, which left me with some questions. And then the fourth one is Spidey versus the Bugle. And then the fifth one is Spidey versus fake news. And I'm like, what's happening? So,
and then we get to one of the weirdest ones, which
you
when
mean
this was
the Neil Gaiman dust covers story about Sandman just reprinted with Spider-Man slotted in instead.
I mean, it's not just that. It's the fact that it's Neil Gaiman self-inserting, not in the way that like Dream kind of looks like Neil Gaiman circa 1988. It's literally just Neil Gaiman. And he's like, oh, I wrote a Spider-Man story, and this is what happened in it. It's just weird. It just isn't what I was expecting from Neil Gaiman writing Spider-Man. And it's so funny that we're talking about it here with gods, where everybody is like, this is Jonathan Hickman doing Sandman for Marvel. Meanwhile, we've got Neil Gaiman doing Spider-Man for Marvel, and it's just Neil Gaiman having himself talk to Spider-Man in the waiting room of Steve Ditko's
about being fans of Spider-Man and
He would.
I really fall asleep listening to Neil Gaiman's incredibly soothing voice.
He has a beautiful voice, and he has a beautiful writing style. It's not even that it's a bad story. It's just like Neil Gaiman, purveyor of iconic stories of heroes being their most them. Him, him being the guy that understands at a certain level what the essence of characters are in a way that, like, it's Morrison, it's Gaiman. This is a very short list of these men. Weirdly, they're British, that just get and love comics in a unique way, and they write them.
Well, it's because it rains all the time over there. So what the fuck else are they going to do?
Yeah, you just sit inside and read Spider-Man. But then, he comes in to write an iconic Spider-Man compilation, and his story is just like, I don't know, we were all in a waiting room for a fictional Steve Ditko's doctor's office, I guess. I don't know.
Well, but compare that to the one in Marvel Age 1000. Marvel Age 1000 has the best cover in the world for the worst book. Is it the worst book? No. I give it a B-, honestly. I give it a solid B-, I guess. We have a couple of really interesting stories. A Human Torch story about the original Human Torch. I'm an android. Human Torch. Not interesting. Sorry about it. Really big fan of Mark Waid. I put Mark Waid on a religious list of people who taught me how to be a good man. And
this is another one where I kind of thought maybe it was going to go somewhere. Like maybe they were going to be like, you will see him in the pages of Gods.
Uncanny X-Men, where he's going to be revealed to be a mutant because he's a mutant robot. And that's how he's going to help them take down Orcus. Anything.
Yeah.
This was boring. Spider-Man versus the Lizard over in Sunday Dinner. Ryan Stegman is the master of telling a Spider-Man story with no actual conclusion.
Yeah. This was another one that was kind of like, this is every Spider-Man story.
Yes.
He just fights the Lizard. Oops, he's late. Mary Jane got him a new phone. He hangs out with... Also, when is this taking place? I don't know. Anyway.
We get it. Your life's hard, Spidey.
And it's kind of the same thing for the Rainbow Rowell X-Men story, where it's
Except
just like...
Jean had crazy eyes on every page.
She really did. Marguerite Sauvage, gorgeous artist. Everybody has crazy eyes because it's a little heavy with the eyeliner.
I've never seen her make this decision with eyes before, ever.
A little wide with the eyes. I mean, some of it maybe is up to inking. Rainbow Rowell, you're real problematic. If you would just apologize for...
Oh my God, just say that Asian people have a right to be Asian and that you don't have the right to determine it for them.
I just say the book was bad. Like, it was your first book. You didn't know better. You were young. We all do stupid things. I get that you're making money off it, and so you don't want to be like, I'm just going to unpublish it. But, like, at the very least, can you just say it was a mistake? Because I really love... the Simon Snow trilogy. Kevo, you would love the Simon Snow trilogy so much. But
she keeps me away. So
of course, because it's really bad. It's really bad to not just be like, this is a bad book. I shouldn't have written this. I didn't know. It's the same thing. Like, nobody is like, we shouldn't use Deadpool anymore because people wrote garbage Deadpools in 2010. We just say that was garbage. And then if anybody won't apologize for saying something really horrible...
we just call them Rob Liefeld.
Exactly. And then we move on. But you're becoming somebody who we have to say that about because you won't just be like, this is bad. I shouldn't have written this book.
And you know who wouldn't appreciate that? She-Hulk.
So true. So true. She'd get litigious. But yeah, Rainbow Rowell's completely inoffensive... X-Men story. This is every X-Men story we've ever seen, except slightly more from Jean's perspective insofar as it's Jean just being like, I don't need to be saved. I could kill all of you.
'Cause I'm Jean fucking Grey.
Because I'm Jean fucking Grey, which is totally true. Marguerite Sauvage, such gorgeous art, except for the crazy eyes, babe.
And the thing is, she's not, like I said earlier, she's not known for her crazy eyes or anything. It's not like, oh man, Marguerite Sauvage, she just can't draw an eyeball. It's not like, Rob Liefeld with feet. It's just a really interesting choice she made to have everybody have like full on Alyssa Edwards, but
the big problem is half of it is with Cyclops, who you can't see his eyes because he's always wearing shades.
He's rough.
And then, Beast and War, and she knows this is the hottest Beast ever, by the way. Marguerite Sauvage, hottest Hank McCoy of all time.
His OnlyFans would break the website.
Truly, 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 truly. But yeah, I mean, this is a perfect. Not this one, unfortunately.
No.
You tried.
Not no.
Perfectly fine, but just kind of in exactly that way. Like, it's just every X-Men story. It's just, oh, they're in school. Oh no, they're having trouble. Oh no, they're fighting. Okay, we're done.
And that's maybe even a little bit how I felt about the Marvel story. Again, I thought this was going to go somewhere, but then it's just like a really good Marvel story.
Yeah.
The Daredevil
gorgeous
story,
all red art.
Yeah. The Daredevil story. I thought the Daredevil story might go somewhere with Adam Kubert art. Adam Kubert drew Daredevil. And nothing happened. It was just Daredevil so overwhelmed by his senses that he can't even. I don't know.
He can't even.
Steve McNiven doing Death Heaven. I guess this Silver Surfer story was the standout of the book for me. Mephisto being like, you're gonna tell me that you believe in these humans, but I just want to remind you, one day they're gonna abandon you. And Silver Surfer looks right back at him and is like, same to you, Satan. And like, that was just fuck. Like, I feel bad saying it this way, but Steve McNiven wrote the thesis of Avengers by Jason Aaron in one page, in 2 panels. And it was the most effective storytelling I've seen in a really long time. Yeah, but at some point they'll abandon you.
Here's my one problem with it. The first time I skimmed all the way to the end, then I went back and read exactly the thing that you were talking about, which is the last 2 pages. And it's the second to last page. Mephisto says, "You must see there's no hope in Fortune's book." And he goes on and gives this whole speech about how the humans will hate you. The page after that, "You give the lie well, friend," says Silver Surfer. And he basically just says exactly that. They'll do the same to you. And then they part ways. Between the start of the story and that page, there's like 5 or 6 other pages that if you just choose not to read at all, you don't actually lose anything but gorgeous art.
That's a bummer.
It really could have been a 3-page story except for the art. And, I'll leave it there.
The Girl Who Hates Superheroes, that Jason Aaron story, is a victim of being a Jason Aaron story. It's a great story. It's beautiful. It looks great. It reads great. The pacing's amazing. The characterization is phenomenal. Jason, I am your biggest fan. I am your biggest fan in the world. Please, for the love of God, man, write any other of your genius eras. The guy wrote the best run on Wolverine. He wrote the best take on the X-Mansion with Wolverine and the X-Men. The guy is a genius. His Ghost Rider is breathtaking. His Punisher is insanely good. There's so much Jason Aaron out there that is so good, but they only let him write Jane Thor. That's got to be an editorial decision. It's an editorial mistake. But this story is certainly excellent.
It's excellent. It's going to the point that you just made. What would have been really cool, it's called The Girl Who Hates Superheroes. It's about a girl who has a run-in with Jane Foster. A girl who hates superheroes has a run-in with Jane Foster, and then she doesn't hate superheroes anymore. What would have been really cool is if she had a run-in with all of Aaron's iconic characters. She has a run-in with Jane Thor,
Exactly.
still hates superheroes. She has a run-in with Wolverine, still hates superheroes. Ghost Rider, still hates superheroes. Finally, there's one. You pick one. There's a reason why they vibe.
It could even be Jane still, because they're women who have this doctor connection.
The Laraz art is amazing. I really like, I always like a human buys in by the end story. I really do like, but yeah, the problem ultimately was as soon as Jane Thor showed up, it was just kind of like, really, Aaron, you're still doing this? You're that guy in college coming back to high school to be like, oh, but my year, that was the year.
If you
but
have
I
sex
like
with
this.
more of your high school classmates when you're already in college, bad sign.
But I like this character. I would bring her back.
Same. I actually thought that she was so strong and so well realized from even within her first page that I felt like she might have been the actual character that we were meant to follow. I thought perhaps this was going to be one of those bait and switch stories where they give you like a main character who's going to become a thing you already know. Like she's going to become a Spider-Man or something, which, was not the story, but I would have taken that. The only story I really want to like at for even half a second, I love that J. Michael Straczynski was given an opportunity to write about real men he knew in writing about Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, and how they all, as little boys, might have shared a window into the Marvel universe, like they were seeing it firsthand as it was happening. I genuinely love that idea. I always think writing real person fanfic is really tricky, especially when you are the professional writer, the creator of multiple works on television. It's always a little tough for me as your fan to be like, oh, you're Stan Lee, a real man you knew. Your Stan Lee fanfic is super cool, bro. Don't worry about it. That's a tough sell for me. And as a result, the JMS story in Marvel Age 1000 was a pretty tough sell for me after not being enormously enamored of the JMS story in Amazing Fantasy 1000. For a guy whose Spider-Man I maintain is like the best Spider-Man of all time, and his upcoming Captain America is hopefully going to be something we cover with a plum, just not enamored of this final story.
Yeah, it's just a weird choice. Oh, well, I don't really know what more to say about it than that. What I will say is the Kari Andrews art is amazing.
Maybe he'll draw Spider-Man's dick again.
The Kid Kirby with the black hair, black wavy hair and the glasses. That's just like a character I want to see. Like that's a character design I want to see. It's not really, I don't really want it to be Jack Kirby, but like, I don't know. Yeah. Like real people fanfic. That's a weird thing. And we love J. Michael Straczynski so much on the show. We're about to embark on a journey through his works. And that's going to extend into his future Captain America run. So we're here for Straczynski. I just, if he pitched this to them and this made him so happy to write, I love it. If they were like, hey, we want you to write the tribute to our founders, I maybe don't ask him to do that again. I don't know.
And, that's really what we're talking about here. Every single thing that we talked about, whether it was Gods or Marvel 1000, all we've talked about is essentially tributes to these creators. If there was anything I wish we'd had a chance to talk about, it's perhaps how much I hated the voiceover work on the Gods trailer. But other than that, I really think what we're talking about is a legacy of creators who love a legacy of creators. And what that means as a fan, it's tough because like when you think about the fact that there are pages here by creators who had to have read Klaus Janson as a penciler, and then Klaus Janson is their inker. That's such an incredible thing. And I think that's the legacy of Marvel. That's the nature of something that's existed for 80 years, that has 1,000 issues, that has talked so much about theology, godhood, and what it means to be alive. that's what Marvel often seeks to be a reflection of. They claim to be the world outside your door. And I think, for better or for worse, they're always trying to capture that, whether it's through genuine attempts to be the future of your world or by reminding you might have liked it a little bit more a couple of years ago. I don't know. I'm excited about God's #1. I'm really disappointed in Marvel Age 1000, but I'm going to buy the next 1000 because I'm a Marvel simp. How about you, Teak?
Yeah, I will buy it. I want to go back to an era where there is a big overarching plan and and you know, we're hyping stories 2 months in advance. That's what I want.
Yeah, because currently we're hyping them like, 4 years in advance, like it's a goddamn movie plan.
Yeah.
Kevo, any thoughts from you as we ring on out to the outro and remind everybody that they can check us out at X's for Show on all your social medias, and you can check us out Saturday at like 5 o'clock-ish?
No notes.
Well, then how
Which-
about where can... Oh, by all means.
No, just good show. You guys rock.
Well, where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
Oh, and you can find me on the interwebs at Kevoreally. That's KEVOREALLY. Teak, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at TK Elemental, but if you message me in the next couple days, I probably won't respond because I'm going to be too busy watching Solar Opposites and Only Murders in the Building, getting ready for our next couple TV roundups. And Kevo, I don't know, Nico told you, but I just finished season 1 of Only Murders, and I'm very obsessed, and I'm very excited to start season 2.
Yay. Oh, good, yay.
And
Yeah,
season 2 is
baby.
so fun, right? I think you'll also really like Solar Opposites a lot.
I've seen a ton of Solar Opposites that I'm just catching up on.
As far as me, you can find me at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION. And until we come back on Saturday to talk more stuff. We have been the Action Pack. We love you guys. You're all amazing. We can't wait to see you. So you got 3 things you got to do. You got to be brave. You got to ham.
Yeah, ham.
And you got to evolve daily. So be brave, ham, and evolve daily. And we'll see you Saturday.